keeping you up to date. This is Borders Rugby Special on Borders Rugby Radio with Stuart Cameron.
Hello and welcome to Philiphaugh for this week's Borders Rugby Special for the first time on a Friday night. I'm Stuart Cameron. We're here for the next 3 hours bringing you the latest score updates and live commentary from our featured match today between Selkirk and Jedforest in the Premiership. But it's also a double header with it being a Border League Pool A match, and from that pool there are two possible solutions. If Selkirk win by more than 11 points tonight or win with a try bonus, then they will go through to the final of the world's oldest league competition. If they don't achieve that, it'll be Hawick who will progress for the second year running. And let's start off with a chat with the two coaches. We'll hear from Andrew Brown, head coach of Jedforest, shortly. But first, a chat with Selkirk head coach Scott White, who I spoke to earlier. Joining me at the back of the stand now, Scott White, the head coach of Selkirk, and my goodness, still unbeaten away from home since we last saw you.
It's a rarity, yeah.
It's going well, isn't it?
Oh, look, I don't know what it is. You could maybe look at it in terms of who we've played away from home, but last week to go up to Glasgow Hawks and win with a bonus point at the end, last play of the game pretty much, is testament to the guys. They stayed in the fight for 80 minutes, and coming away with a bonus point and giving them nothing was a huge boost for us.
And as you say, it's down to who you play. But you played Mara away from home at Fulton Park. You've always had a good record against them. But that must give them so much confidence, knowing that, home comforts are nice, but when you can go on the road and put in the performance, that's bingo. Oh,
look, I think at the moment we'd rather play away from home, strangely, which usually you wouldn't say. But, it's important that we come back at home. We've not really played that well at home this year, which is quite frustrating. So, hopefully, as you say, they're great 2 wins on the road the last few weeks as well. So hopefully we can start to bring that into our home performances. But I think we're starting to get to a place that we're now seeing a consistent picture, obviously on the pitch as well. And we've now got Russell Anderson, Alan Ferry and Ben Pickles released tonight as well. So
not a bad trio.
I know. So from a squad point of view, we're strong in terms of where we were last week. Obviously Alan came on at half time, had a huge impact, and obviously Ben scored 2 tries. So they've been a great addition. They're only here for a short period of time, so it's important that we use these guys when we've got them.
Now, Premiership, obviously, bread and butter, important and everything else. But, of course, it's a Border League match as well. And if you win by 11 points or you win with a bonus point, you're into the final. And, of course, the last time Selkirk won the Border League final back in 2010. So that will be very much in the back of the mind as far as the Premiership's concerned. But you'll be looking at later as something that you want to do as well.
I think, last week beating Glasgow Hawks and going into the top 4, obviously top 4 has been quite a big focus, so I think it's really important. I'd take a 3-0 win tonight, to be honest. If you don't win by 11 points, you don't win by 11 points. I think first and foremost, the 4 points in the league is obviously priority, but we appreciate it's going to be hard. You watch Hawick Jed last week, I thought Jed went toe to toe with them, and there wasn't much between them. Hawick, likewise, when they're across here, they can take their chances, and look, they're physical up front, they're dominant. But the big difference between Hawick and other teams in the league at the moment, when they're in that final third of the pitch, they seem to come away with points every time they're in there. And that was the main difference. So, first and foremost tonight, it's all about the 4 points for the league. Just to, with no other games tonight as well, you then stretch your 3 points to potential, or hopefully 7 points from Glasgow Hawks, and then they go into a local derby tomorrow with GHA. So, and then above us, you've got Curry and Edinburgh Accies playing back to back as well. So, if one of those teams get beat twice above us, there's a huge chance in us closing the gap. But it's all about us. It's all about, in terms of sitting offside line this week as well, it's just about trying to be more consistent over the 80 minutes, and that's something we've still not done all year, to be honest. We've played in fits and starts, and we're really good for a period of time, but it's how many more times in that game can we have a big influence on the game. And at the moment we switch out of the games for 10, 20 minutes, and sometimes it can prove crucial. So for us, it's about consistency, 80 minutes rather than 10, 15, 40. We're getting better, but there's still a lot we can improve on.
Well, we wish you all the best, and we'll see you later.
Thanks, Joe.
Well, Andrew, we're at another border derby here at Philiphaugh, and of course you'll be getting to know Selkirk quite well over the next couple of weeks. You welcome them to Riverside Park next week. Today, though, it's Philiphaugh, and they haven't got a great home record, have they? You'll be trying to take advantage of that.
Well, you try and take any advantage you can, but we had a tough game against Hawick last week, which the lads really got up for, and no doubt another border derby. We'll be looking for the same again this week. And
it's a very different kind of game, isn't it, as you've found out this season?
Yeah, I mean each team, every team we play gives it's a different challenge each week. But yes, it's a one that we'll address and we'll get into them.
So last week, obviously, very good first half, and you were very competitive right up to really the last 10 minutes. I mean, it could have gone either way. I mean, just towards the end, there was one decision which was a reverse penalty. They went up the field and got that. You nearly got something out of that game.
Yeah, it's really disappointing to come away with nothing after a positive sort of 70 minutes. For that one decision was the game changer. We were 10 metres from their line with a penalty to be reversed, and then Hawick obviously turned it around and went the length to get the bonus point. I think the bonus giving Hawick the bonus point was probably the knife in the back that was really disappointing. So having defended so well and the lads be so physical, just to come away with nothing and Hawick have a bonus point was a
bit gutting.
A little bit.
But we have seen improvement, haven't we? A lot of improvement with Jedforest. And it's good to see sort of, people like Mason Cullen doing well and beginning to find his wings, and the twins back again. And obviously Aidan Bambrick coming in at 9, and you've got Jai McGough at 10. So, that was kind of enforced because obviously Don Buckley got his red card. But it's good to see new combinations and combinations that look comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, the boys is a tight group, and there's a good vibe in the camp at the moment. Everybody's buying into what we're trying to do. Bambi's doing brilliantly. A young lad who's just, I think, gets better each week. Jai's Jai. He's solid in defence and he's good in attack. And he's stepped up to the plate. Yeah, so and obviously Gregor and Lewis in the team, just their experience is pivotal and brilliant for the likes of Mason to learn from.
So what about the team news for you today?
So there's we're not too much of a change from last week. Ben McNeil's unavailable, so Kyle Grieve comes into the open side. In the back row with Elliot Lodder and Gary Young. Gary's playing really well at the moment. Had a great game last week. His physicality, he's strong, he's busy. And then the back line, Bambi again, Jai McGough. Same really as last week. Robbie Houston comes into 12 for Ricardo Ferreira, which is good. Robbie's been out for quite a while with a foot injury, so it's good to get him back on the park. He played 80 minutes for the second team last week and was outstanding here. Obviously a quality player, so you want to get these players on the park. And then on the bench we've got Gary Munro comes back into the squad, having had a bit of time off from rugby.
So he'll be fresh and ready and hopefully raring to go.
Hope so.
Also, you mentioned Robbie Houston. Of course, Robbie Houston, an excellent place kicker. But so's Finlay Scott. Who's going to be taking your kicks tonight?
Oh, Finlay will be taking the kicks.
All right.
Yeah.
So he's under pressure. Was it 2 misses and Robbie comes in? Is that how it works?
No. Finlay's only missed 2 so far this season. So he'll be doing well to miss 2 tonight, I think.
Fantastic. Anyway, we wish you all the best and, hopefully it's a good game.
Thanks, this is Borders Rugby Special on Borders Rugby Radio with Stuart Cameron.
Now, after the break, we're going to be paying tribute to Donald MacLeod, former president of Selkirk and the SRU, and also a team doctor for Scotland and the British and Irish Lions, who sadly passed away at the age of 81 this week. I'll be joined by Selkirk president David Anderson. That's next.
Based in Galashiels but covering the whole region and beyond, Borders Mortgage Hub is your one-stop shop for all things mortgage related in the Borders. Visit us at bordersmortgagehub.com or call us on 01896 807 008. That's 01896 807 008. Borders Mortgage Hub. Mortgages for the Borders in the Borders.
Hi, Nicky Walker here, Curriculum Learning Manager for Sports and Outdoor Activities at Borders College. Have you ever considered turning your passion for sport into a rewarding career? If so, then why not get in touch at borderscollege.ac.uk/sport.
Borders College, regionally focused, globally engaged.
To commemorate the 7th anniversary of the opening of the Borders Railway, an 8 DVD box set is now available featuring the complete series Borders Railway from start to finish, plus the full hour-and-a-half documentary 5 Years On, which examines the possibility of an extension to Carlisle, plus extra features including a cab journey along the entire Borders Railway, all for the special price of just £14.99, including post and packing. You can get your copy direct from hotdisc.co.uk/shop. That's hotdisc.co.uk/shop. The 8 DVD box set, The Complete Borders Railway, is available now.
When the weather's dreich and a storm's a brewing, you need a strong, windproof, quality umbrella delivered with good old-fashioned customer service and at an affordable price. Up here in Umbrella Heaven, we say you tackle the ball, we'll tackle the weather. UmbrellaHeaven.com for when the heavens open.
Hello, this is George Ingles here, and I'm thrilled that my songs are now available on 2 albums, Anthology and Lockdown Blues.
Late in the evening, she's wondering what clothes to wear.
Both available on iTunes to download and stream.
I am the train, been gone since 69.
George Ingles Anthology and Lockdown Blues. Check them out now on iTunes and other digital sites.
This is Borders Rugby Special on Borders Rugby Radio.
So, sad news reached us all this week with the death of Donald MacLeod, former Selkirk and SRU president at the age of 81. And joining me to pay tribute to the great man is current Selkirk president David Anderson. And David, it's come as a real shock to the many people who knew him with a lot of affection.
Yeah, he was a lovely guy. We knew Donald had been poorly for some time, so it wasn't a complete shock. But yeah, everybody at the club was really sad when they heard the news.
I've read many tributes from people this week. He really did touch the hearts of many, didn't he?
Yeah, I think I'm the same as you. I've read a lot of the social media stuff. I thought it was really nice, Dr. James Robson for the SRU, saying how he'd been an inspiration to him. We have Jeff Cullen, who you'll know quite well, who does a lot of age grade rugby, is our club doctor. I'm sure he was an inspiration to people like that, that have got involved in sport through the example he set.
Certainly one of the unsung heroes, wasn't he? He did so much work behind the scenes that never really got the credit.
Yeah, and he was a quiet guy, really nice chap. He always had a word for everybody. I'm expecting it to be a huge funeral up at Innerleithen on Thursday because I do think he's had a big influence on a lot of people.
What's your own memories of Donald?
Well, Donald, he was actually when I was a young player. He was a doctor up at Livingston, and I had an injury early in my career, and John Rutherford actually, through his connection, took me up to see Donald, and that was my first experience of him, sort of telling me I wasn't going to play very much rugby for a while. But he was just a lovely guy, and that was typical of him. He was prepared to make time in his day. He was a busy doctor up at the hospital Livingston. He made time in his day for a wee laddie for Selkirk who just went up with an injury, so he was a lovely guy. And
what do you think the legacy will be at this club in particular?
Well, I think we're very lucky as a club that we've got a lot of ambassadors, if you like, and Donald was one of those ambassadors. We've got Bert Duffy and Mary Ingalls and John Rutherford, John Smale, people like that who make people welcome when they come to the club, which is really important for a small club like Selkirk, that we're seen to be friendly and welcoming and open for people to come down here. And that's just what you're saying before, Stuart. He was, he did it in a quiet way, but he was somebody that had time to speak to people and, would share his knowledge, that he'd gathered through rugby and medicine, and just was a great influence on the club.
Well, David, thanks much indeed for joining us here at the back of the stand. And of course, there'll be a minute's silence dedicated to the memory of Donald McLeod just before the game tonight. Well, it's a depleted fixture card this weekend because of the Scotland match against Argentina tomorrow at 3:15. So the club games have been spread across 2 days, some tomorrow, mostly at 1:15, and others tonight. And let's have a look at who's playing, starting with tonight at the Green Yards. It's a National 1 match between Melrose and Stuart's Melville. And we can hear now from Melrose head coach Bert Grigg.
Look, after a good performance up the road in Inverness, we're looking for a sort of continue our home form as well. Keep getting better, and probably had a 40-minute performance up in Inverness, and looking for that sort of 60-80-minute performance this weekend. Just keep building that momentum into the Christmas break. Looking to pick up the wins there. Boys have trained well. Thursday night a bit disrupted with the weather, but still made sure we've got plenty of clarity on what we're looking to do, and prep the best we can for the Friday night fixture. But a few changes, not much change in the pack. A couple of rotations with Will Owen coming off the bench to start this game. Ronan Runciman, impressing on debut up in Inverness, is starting in the second row as well. A couple of changes in the back line. Donald Crawford away celebrating his 40th birthday. He's unavailable, so a bit of a shuffle in the back line. Seems Luke Townsend start, Stu Hutchison moved to 12 and Gav Wood to 13, and some changes in the back three with James Brown returning, Davy Colvin being unavailable this week for selection. Boys coming in there to look to take their opportunities, put out a performance and keep that momentum going.
There we are, that's Bert Grigg with his tongue firmly in his cheek, saying Donald Crawford is 40 years old. Don't think so. Melrose right up there though in National 1 at the moment, taking on bottom club Stuart's Melville, who are so far this season haven't been great travellers. Robin Purdy is there tonight for us. Well, no game for table toppers Kelso this weekend, but Gala travel to Millbrae to take on second place Ayr, and we all know that this weekend and next could be so important in the outcome of who wins promotion to the Premiership, with Kelso visiting Ayr next week as well. Let's hear from Gala head coach Stuart Johnson, see what he has to say on his team's game tomorrow.
Really tough fixture, and I think both teams will be looking at it as a must-win if we're to keep pressure up on Kelso at the top of the league. Obviously, we've lost 2 games so far. Ayr have lost 1. That kind of says it all, that we're both performing really well this season. Millbrae is always a tough place to go. Obviously, weather-wise as well isn't going to be the greatest, so it's going to be a tight game. I think we've prepared well all week. We've got a very settled squad from last week. Angus Dunn's back from New Zealand, so he'll be on the bench. Scott Peppers comes back in on the bench as well. Again, a very settled squad, which is good that we get some consistency within our squad week to week, and we'll just look forward to going up there, putting in a performance, and hopefully coming away with the right result.
Stuart Johnson, and putting our Borders hats on, we're certainly looking for back-to-back wins for Gala and Kelso in Ayr over the next 2 Saturdays. Tomorrow in the Premiership, Hawick do battle at home to bottom club Musselburgh at Mansfield Park, and making his 200th appearance for the club will be this man, Sean Muir.
It's a massive honour. It's my hometown club. I love this place. I love playing at the club. I was lucky to play 1 game, if I'm honest, against the cliche, but delighted. I just got told that the other week, so it's massive. It's 200, but the most important thing next week is getting another win to keep us on track for the rest of the season. Regardless of who we play, we just concentrate on ourselves. We'll look to impose ourselves on Musselburgh. We'll give them all the respect they deserve. They've got some experienced players in that team, and by no means there'll be a pushover.
Sean Muir, and many congratulations to him for that huge achievement. And good luck to the Greens in that one, as they look to defend the Bill McLaren Shield once again, and also increase their unbeaten run in the Premiership to 11 games. And of course, they could well stay top of the table. But I must also mention that Earlston will be playing Lismore at home tomorrow in East League 3. That's a 1:15 kick-off, which is the time most of the club games start tomorrow, due to the 3:15 kick-off of Scotland against Argentina. Then on Sunday, it's unbeaten Kelso ladies on the road to play Corstorphine second 15. And as far as National 2 is concerned, tomorrow there are no fixtures.
This is Borders Rugby Special on Borders Rugby Radio with Stuart Cameron.
Well, at 8 o'clock at the Green Yards, Melrose are taking on Stuart's Melville in a National 1 match. We can cross over now to the Green Yards and hear from our man covering this one, Robin Purdy.
Welcome to the Green Yards, Friday night rugby in Tennett's National League 1, where Melrose, fourth in the division, will take on Stuart's Melville, who are firmly rooted to the bottom. And given the day we have had, I'm delighted to say there is no rain, there's not a breath of wind, and we should be in for a fine evening of running rugby. Melrose ring the changes this week. In come Harry Makowski, James Brown, who was sent off and served a suspension after the Kelso game. Luke Townsend comes in at 10. Doug Crawford comes in at night. He went well for the Southern Knights this season. And up front, Will Owen comes in at prop, and Ronan Runciman comes in the middle row. Stuart's Melville also ring the changes. In comes Mike Miller at centre. Fraser Strachan, impressive in the second half against Kelso, comes in at number 9. Ali Scott comes into the Boiler House. Mason Moyer, who's also registered with Ellen, he comes in at number 7. And partnering him in the back row is Jaden Woodworth, who also comes in for this evening's game. These two teams, I believe, have not or last played here at the Green Yards in 2009, which resulted in a 29-6 win to the home side. Fraser Thompson and John Diel among the scorers. So, like I say, should be in for a decent evening of rugby, and I will update you with proceedings as we go.
Thank you very much indeed to Robin Purdy. Live updates from the Green Yards with Robin throughout the evening. But now it's time to concentrate on our featured match tonight on Borders Rugby Special. It's Selkirk against Jedforest. Full uninterrupted commentary on the game right here on Borders Rugby Radio with Sam Mathews and, first of all, Dale Clancy.
Thank you very much, Stuart, and welcome to everybody to Philiphaugh for some Premiership action. Underneath the lights is Jedforest make the short trip to take on Selkirk. There is a feeling of deja vu this evening, as almost a year ago these two sides did lock horns in a rearranged fixture, playing back-to-back fixtures in mid-November. Both teams were low in form at the time and had only managed 4 wins between them at that point in the league, but what a difference a year makes. Jed are looking to bounce back after a defeat to Hawick last week and start to look up rather than down after 3 wins and some impressive performances, whereas Selkirk will be hoping to put some distance between themselves and Glasgow Hawks and grip onto a playoff spot. They beat their playoff rivals on the road last week, and with Edinburgh Accies facing Curry this weekend, it could be a positive weekend for the Sooters as they start to get their elbows out at the top end of the standings. Scott White has kept faith in most of the squad, who've got an impressive victory at Balgrey last weekend as Andrew McComb nudges forward to the second row to accommodate the arrival of Ewan Ferry from the Southern Knights. There's also a place on the bench for another night in Russell Anderson, as well as a return for namesake Callum, who makes an anticipated return to the squad. Their starting lineup is Ryan Cottrell at fullback. The wingers are Lachlan Ferguson and Ben Pickles, a centre pairing of the interchangeable Ross Nixon alongside Josh Welsh. They've got a half-back pairing of Aaron McComb and Craig Jackson, who made a big impact in the victory on the road against Hawks. They've got a front row of Luke Petty, Bruce Riddle and Zen Shafajak, and in the second row James Head and Andrew McComb packed down with a back row of Alan Ferry, Scott McClyman and Munro Job. The visitors have changed the makeup of their team from last weekend as both Ferreiras dropped to the bench to be replaced by Clarkson and Urston, while Grieve also comes into the squad to replace McNeil in the back row. The man who snatched a draw in the aforementioned fixture last year makes a return to Jed colours on the bench, and the visitors will hope that Gary Munro will again be a positive influence on the side if he comes on. So Jedforest, they line up with Lewis Young at fullback. They've got Robbie Shearer-Gibb and Mason Cullen on the wings. Robbie Urston is the replacement for Ricardo Ferreira at inside centre, and he will partner the effervescent Gregor Young at outside centre. Aidan Bambrick and Jai McGough for your half-back pairing with Grant Paxton. Finlay Scott, the kicker at hooker, alongside another replacement in Gary Clarkson. The second rows of Dan Wardrop and the captain Clark Skeldon, and a back row of Elliot Lauder, Kyle Grieve and Gary Young. And we're just waiting on the teams to come out. We've got a couple minutes until they're going to emerge from the tunnel, and alongside me is co-commentator Sam Mathews. And this is a difficult game to call because Jedforest are scoring tries, but Selkirk are the team definitely high in confidence.
Yeah, well, as we've said just before we came on in there, we're discussing there's yet to win away from home, Jed, today, so I hope they've come here with that intention to turn this around. But there's so many key battles all over the pitch. As I looked at when I was putting the team sheet side by side, you've got the Boiler House, you've got Skeldon versus Head, as you rightly pointed out. I think the 9-10 that you pointed out as well is going to be a really key battle there. You've got obviously McGough versus Jackson, Bambrick, the young 9, he causes that. When I was watching them play against the Ackies, he had a real attacking mindset at the Garden pillar. He really penalised you for not doing the basics well, so that'll be interesting to see on a soggy pitch, wet ball, how this is going to play out today.
Jed are emerging from the tunnel. It's Clark Skeldon, their captain, who's leading them onto the field. And for what we've had in terms of weather, the pitch looks like it's holding up pretty well. It's covered in a lot of grass. There's little patches, as you would expect here at Philiphaugh, but we should say it's certainly seen more water in the past. And now the suitors come out from the tunnel, led on by their captain Luke Petty, alongside Aaron McComb as well, the co-captain. And there's certainly a lot of energy in the air between these two sides. A typical border derby. But it's going to be getting started off with a minute's silence after the sad passing of Donald McLeod on Sunday last week, as the referees just make their way to the centre circle. Ross Maben, the man in the middle, will blast his whistle. A well-respected minute's silence there for Dr. Donald McLeod, who sadly passed away, aged 81 on Sunday. He's left a big impact on Scottish rugby, serving as a doctor over the 2 Grand Slam years, as well as travelling with the British Lions to New Zealand in 1983. And he'll be sadly missed here at Philiphaugh, as well as in the wider rugby community. And our thoughts go out to his friends and family at this time, as Jedforest are going to be playing from left to right, heading towards Yarrow, and Selkirk are going to be playing towards the town end here at Philiphaugh in their immaculate white strips, and I'd imagine they're not going to stay white for long.
I was going to say, it was a brave choice when they decided they'd go with the white strips today, but who knows, might motivate them, keep the ball off the ground, save on the washing bill.
I think it's easy to identify who's maybe not mucking in as much with maybe after about 20 minutes we'll be able to point out and see who has maybe not been rolling about on the floor as much as some of their compadres. But it is going to be Selkirk to get the game underway, and Aaron McComb, as I mentioned before, the co-captain here, and it's perhaps a change in luck for Selkirk because most of their big players have been able to shake off the injuries in what has been a really intense campaign so far. Selkirk sitting in 4th, 10 games played, nicely nestled in there, 3 points ahead of Glasgow Hawks, who they beat on the road last weekend. Ross Maben blasts the whistle, and Aaron McComb gets play underway here at Philiphaugh. Right-footed kick downfield, trundles into the hands of Mason Cullen, who looks to try and make an immediate impact on his opposite man, Ben Pickles. And speaking off air before the game, we looked at that as a really enticing battle, as it's almost been plucked out the air by James Head, who almost got to grips with that. And I would have fancied him from about 15 metres out. He certainly had a chance, but just couldn't get to grips with the ball and get the opening score here.
Yeah, you have to think of it being a dry day today, and he'd managed to get his hand just firmly around that ball. He had a full head of steam as well, and there was not much in front of him between him and the try line there.
James Head rolling back the years there because he was certainly out of that defensive line very, very sharply. And he looked like he'd read that pass perfectly, but just not able to get the ball under control and charge upfield. But as it stands, it's obviously still 0-0 here. We've played 3 minutes, and Jed have got a defensive scrum inside their own 22. They were on the other end of a defeat against Hawick last weekend at Mansfield Park, 26 points to 7, and they were used to playing inside their own 22. A lot of the game was actually played inside Jed territory. It was very attritional at times, but Hawick managed to get the bonus point victory right at the end with that Sean Muir try, a player who's making his 200th appearance for his home club this weekend. And Jedforest will be hoping to try and get out of this defensive area early on. But Selkirk off to a bright start, managing to pin the visitors back from what was a scrappy restart, a kick-off from Aaron McComb, and James Head almost was the benefactor in the end, as Aidan Bambrick just has a little look at the scrum as Ross Maben brings it together. It's going to be an interesting battle up front as well, because they're two big squads, and Selkirk have got the nudge on early doors, and that's going ahead at a rate of knots, and it's just been plucked up the back from Munro Job. It's an acute line there as well from Selkirk, who look to try and unlock that defence early on. And the ball's going a little bit wider, and they eventually get over, and it looks like it's going to be an opening score for Selkirk here, and it's a debut try for Alan Ferry, who's making his first appearance for Selkirk after his second appearance, for Selkirk after his stint at the Southern Knights, a draft player, and it's certainly been a bright start for Selkirk, coming out with a lot of intensity, and they get the first score.
Yeah, you have to say the two young boys there really put their authority on this game early on. Ferry and Munro Job, they really commanded that scrum. Obviously, big shunt from the front three. Bruce Riddle, the hooker in that front row there, he really asserted his dominance on that first. Obviously, there was the reset scrum, but the first live scrum of the game, they have really set the tempo there. And those two young back rowers hit the ball at pace, and there's no substitute for pace and power.
Aaron McComb, right-footed kick. He looked happy with it when it left his boot, but it's just drifted in front of the post. But yes, you would say that up front, in terms of the scrum, it's Selkirk who have the upper hand.
Yes, definitely. Like I said, Bruce Riddle he must have targeted that first one in the changing room. When they think about the first 5 minutes of the game, Bruce obviously had that first scrum lined up and sent the Jedforest pack back at a rate of knots.
Instant impact for Selkirk. It's a bright start for the Suitors as they look to try and consolidate their place in fourth in the table and look upwards towards Edinburgh Accies and try and close the gap ahead of what is a big weekend of fixtures in the Tennent's Premiership. The restart from Jedforest does bobble out just short of the Selkirk 22, and it's going to be a throw into the line out for Selkirk here as they look to try and go through their repertoire and escape from inside their own half and get a clean exit downfield and put the pressure back on the visitors. It's certainly an intense few fixtures for Jedforest, and it's come off the line out relatively cleanly. It's up to being picked up by Philiphaugh at the back of the line out, but he does well. It didn't go to plan, but it's ended up in the hands of the big prop as Andrew McComb now feeds on to Munro Job. He's got some support out on the outside in Lachlan Ferguson, but he's not needed on this occasion. And now James Head trundling up, and the ball is back on a Selkirk side again. Harry McComb just teeing it up nicely for a box kick downfield and puts some good height in it and allows his wingers to chase up, but it's controlled by the foot from Lewis Young, but it's just went straight into the hands of a Selkirk player. Almost pinpoint there from Aaron McComb just to put it in between the fielders there in the back space for Jedforest. It was Luke Petty who made the carry upfield as Selkirk look to go through the phases now. Craig Jackson, he finds Ross Nixon who stabs downfield. He's getting caught up in the clar in the ground here, the wet conditions here at Philiphaugh, but it's a job for Robbie Shearer-Gibb to try and escape from his own half, but he's been wrapped up well there and by James Head, who's had a really impressive opening 5 minutes in this fixture. Now Philiphaugh getting across the field, covering the spaces as Jedforest look like they've got some numbers up on this stand side. Look to try and release Mason Cullen, but he's been well defended there by Ben Pickles. Two players who know each other very well from their time in age grade rugby, playing for the East Borders. And it's Mason Cullen who's been penalised from a good tackle there from Ben Pickles, and Selkirk are now in a very attractive attacking position.
Yeah, you have to say, and it's exactly like you said, they filled the space as well, and they let the penalty come to them there. They let them get isolated. What we did think was an attacking opportunity down the side was excellently marshalled by Ben Pickles and the rest of his back line to force the turnover there.
It's perhaps not the strongest part of Ben Pickles' game as his defence, but that was textbook defending. He managed just to wrap round the waist of Mason Cullen and get down to his ankles and just stop any momentum that he was getting. And the Selkirk players getting across well there just to put into the winger's head that he had very little option but to hold on to the ball as Riddle throws into the line out. It goes to the tail. It's been flapped back, but it's been well gathered there by Kyle Grieve, who's had to move quickly from the tail of that line out to gather that loose ball from a Jed side. And now Bambrick now with his hands on the ball. And he looks to try and find Jai McGough in the pocket, who was had the easiest task of kicking downfield but just couldn't get the ball under control. He's knocked on the ball there. It's going to be an attacking scrum for Selkirk, and that's an unforced error from the young fly half.
Yeah, it was. I think there was a bit of niggling going on around the ruck there as well. It looked like Ferry was having a bit of a verbal disagreement with Yurston about a previous phase of play, but and then unfortunately I think eyes were elsewhere, and then the pass just was a bit lower down than what he was expecting, tried to rush it, and then the knock-on happens because the brain's just, you're too busy, you're 3 steps ahead of yourself before you've completed the task.
A bit of niggling in a Border derby, I don't believe it. Good to see Eurston back in the Jedforest team as well. A really good playmaker after time travelling, a bit of time with injury as well. And certainly at inside centre, he'll be there to support young Jai McGough as he looks to try and establish himself in the first team this season. They put into the scrum for Selkirk. They've got it going forward, and Munro Job's got a keen eye on that as the ball is just trickling forward with his right and left foot, dribbling it towards the line. The penalty's going to come there. It was certainly not look like it was slowing down. Selkirk have definitely got the upper hand in the scrum, and I would fancy my chances for another scrum here.
Yeah, well, Bruce Riddle's first 2 line-out throws haven't been 100%, but his scrummaging is definitely more than made up for it, and no surprise, it looks like they're going straight back for another one there after 2 dominant, almost trundling. It was looked more like a Zamboni trying to just go over an ice hockey pitch there. It was that comfortable for them, rather than a scrum against an opposite dominant team.
They certainly look like they are on top in the scrum. The throwing for the line-out is an interesting point, because you've got the likes of James Bett and Russell Anderson on the bench for Selkirk. 2 very impressive hookers in their own right. Russell Anderson would make his first outing for Selkirk if he was to come onto the pitch after due to be playing last week, but he welcomed his first child, Thomas John, last week. So hope everybody's doing well in the Anderson household. And I'm sure he'll be itching to get back on the field now and have a night off.
I think so. He's probably, like you said, the 80 minutes that he's about to do just now will probably be easier than when he gets home tonight.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be called quickly back home, but it's certainly an impressive player to have in the Selkirk arsenal. They are one team that have certainly strengthened since last year. The likes of Flacklin Ferguson really establishing himself in the first team as well. Craig Jackson as well coming along and certainly adding to the Selkirk's charge up the table. And now Aaron McComb is just waiting over the scrum, still in an attacking position, but Ross Maben gives the penalty Selkirk's way, and that comes from a little bit of pressure, and now the quick penalty comes there from Aaron McComb. That's been well defended initially from Jedforest, as McComb has to get to the ruck quickly as James Head now trucks it up and drops a shoulder straight into a Jedforest chest. And they come again, Selkirk getting round the corner, getting the bodies to the open side, working hard in attack as Jedforest are now forced to work hard in defence. And Gary Young has got a keen eye on that as well, round the fringes, as he's well aware that it's going to be coming his way. It came the way of Munro Job, but it has been knocked on. And what way has it been deemed to be knocked on? I think Ross Maben has said that has been knocked on by a Selkirk hand. So it's going to be a put into the scrum for Jed, but 5 metres from their own line, it's not a foregone conclusion that this is going to come out the tunnel and be kicked downfield.
No, but it was weird there. Almost like McComb couldn't believe that they were still going through the phases there, because you've got Job, you've got Ferry, and you've got Head. All 3, like, they run angry. They are angry young men, and I don't think McComb thought he was not over the try line yet. He generally looks like he was just kind of there, as if they were just running it as in a training session. It was quite hard to watch there, that pass. It was very lackadaisical from him, which is uncharacteristic. Yeah,
it did get a bit stagnant, that attacking phase of play as they came round the corner. The attackers, the forwards looking just to make the hard yards, did get a little bit stagnant in attack as Bambrick rolls the ball into the scrum, and that is being charged forward by Selkirk. It's now been squirted out the scrum. It's now into the hands of Craig Jackson. It's a bit unorthodox from Selkirk as the ball is just popping out every single breakdown possible. It illustrates the conditions that we've got here at Selkirk. As it's come back on the Jedforest side and kicked downfield as Aaron McComb, Ben Pickles looked to try and gather that, and it's just bounced off his shoulder. And the assistant referee having a word with Ross Maben. I think this is perhaps will be a put into the scrum to Jedforest, but they're lucky to get away with that there, because Munro Job looked like he had it under control with Aaron McComb behind him, but just a little bit of mix-up of communication.
Yeah, it looked like they couldn't decide which one of them wanted to fall on the ball, because I'm sure the ball was over the try line. It was quite strange to actually watch there, and then I don't even know how it managed to squat out the back, and then Jed have got away with one, and Ben Pickles, unfortunately, just under the high ball, has managed to knock it forward and trying to reclaim it. So a bit of a get out of jail card for free there for Jedforest.
You'll get in trouble for
that.
Jedforest have managed to get out of their own 22, and they're just out of their own 22, but it's a put into the scrum for Bambrick, and that's a little bit better from Jedforest to just get it out very, very quickly, and they tasked Jai McGough with a carry at first receiver. as the forwards look to try and get round, but great pressure there from James Head on the young scrum half, but Finlay Scott does well to sweep up. As James Head again gets round to try and counter ruck from a Selkirk cause, as Jedforest kick downfield and Pickles again knocks on, but the referee has deemed that there's a penalty there. Selkirk have infringed, so Jedforest under a bit of pressure, but again, like what they've done against Toik, they're under pressure, but they're not conceding points apart from the early score.
Yeah, unfortunately they've set themselves the comeback story again now that they are down, but like you said, that's the best part of 10-12 minutes in their own 5 now, and they've only conceded 1 try.
Robbie Urston with kicking duties, kicks downfield, he just gets play up towards the Jedforest 10 metre line. Finlay Scott, the hooker who did spend a bit of time with the Southern Knights, finds himself back at Jedforest. Obviously taking on the kicking duties as well as the throwing in, as he tries to find his captain in the line out, and he does just that as Clark Skeldon is hoisted highest, and Finlay Scott gets there to the maul, offers his services at the rear of that maul as Jedforest look to try and exploit some strength of their own on this dominant Selkirk pack. They keep the maul pretty cohesive, but Bruce Riddle was all over that, but he does drop to a knee, and Ross Maben's got a keen eye on that as it does come back on the Jedforest side. Urston at first receiver and finds Gregor Young. Now over into the hands of Lewis Young, and now Robbie Shearer Gibb coming off his work and dancing in field. He makes it towards the 5 metre line, just at halfway, as Lewis and Gregor Young now mix up over on the far side of the banking, as Bambrick looks to try and spot a gap and offload to Gary Young now. The number 8 charging upfield, offloads to Paxton. There's a couple of Selkirk players over that ball, and it's been brilliantly stolen there by Bruce Riddle. And Bruce Riddle looking in the health of his life, to be honest with you. He's really worked on his fitness and physique over the last few years, and it's paying dividends now as Aaron McComb works hard to try and protect that ball. It's came back on a Selkirk side, but it's getting pretty messy on the halfway line. Aaron McComb now does recycle himself well to the rear of the ruck. His body's hurtle in, one of them being Robbie Urston's. Nixon now playing first receiver, does pass out field to Josh Welsh, who's clattered by 2 Jedforest players. He's driven back in the tackle, but manages to get the ball back on a Selkirk side. Scott McClyment there, protecting Aaron McComb as he now puts the box kick in downfield. Jedforest do well to get back, and it's Robbie Shearer Gibb again, sweeping up, looks to go inside of Lachlan Ferguson, but he's been well marshalled over on that bank inside here at Philiphaugh. With 15 minutes gone here, it is still Selkirk 5, Jedforest 0. And it's going to be a penalty to Jedforest on the halfway line, and they'll get the chance to kick downfield and perhaps launch an attack of their own from this next line out.
Yeah, you have to think they'll probably try to take a bit of possession in the opposition's half just for a bit of respite, because you can't concede when you've got the ball, and it just gives them that chance. It was nice that they gave Finlay Scott a nice easy first line out throw for him of the day. We spoke about Bruce Riddle's first too. Finlay Scott hits one bang on the money right to the back of the 15, so it'll be interesting to see if they can use this line out as they're clearly struggling in the scrum to really try get some ground back in this fixture.
I think Finlay Scott has been one of those players that has been a little bit unlucky with the quality of perhaps hooker that we've had in the Borders recently, the likes of we've got obviously Fraser Rennick, Russell Anderson, who now find themselves back at Hawick, who were perhaps keeping Finlay Scott out of a starting jersey for the Southern Knights, as he again hits his target at the back of that line out. Skeldon finds Paxton, he's got Wardrop on his shoulder, who then finds Urston, who's just running tight on the shoulder of the towering second row, and now it's the captain charging upfield, the ball tucked firmly underneath his right arm as Bambrick looks to try and get the ball away quickly from the breakdown, as Paxton finds himself at first receiver, when he finds himself pretty much back where he started with the ball as he's driven back in the tackle. Bambrick now finds McGough linking up in midfield as Jedforest are trying to unlock this Selkirk defence. It's been a defence which has been difficult to breach at times, considered on an average 18 points per game, as Jedforest juggled the ball as it got closer and closer to the Selkirk defensive line, but was able to protect himself just before he was clattered by these white jerseys. As Skeldon again carries centre field as Jedforest make their way towards the Selkirk 22. Bambrick now, the scrum half. He finds Urston. Urston has got Gary Young just charging straight down the throat of Ross Nixon, who slips the tackle. Ewan Ferry having to cover for the inside centre. James Head now filtering round as Wardrop. He finds Eurston. Eurston filters the ball out to Mason Cullen, who just stamps his feet on the ground and tries to bounce back in field off his left foot. Again, being well swamped there by the Selkirk defensive line. As Clark Skeldon carries yet again. There's been 3 or 4 carries in this last phase of play. Jedforest finding it very difficult to try and breach that Selkirk 22. And Clarkson's having to act as an auxiliary 9, but he's protected the ball. Ross Mabin now is going to have a conversation with the Jedforest captain. Well, he's having a conversation with Ross Nixon, but it's going to be another penalty. And I would think at this stage in the game, we're at 18 minutes gone, I would imagine that Finlay Scott would fancy a pop at the sticks.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think so. They got away with McComb's missed conversion for the try, so you get it back within 2 points. That really helps you so much more in just getting that bit of confidence back in the team. But they'll take from that phase. There was all dominant collisions there. They ran at some of the big players as well, Head and Ferry that we mentioned, who are running angry on their own. They ran towards them, which can really change the mindset of players as well. When you see these people taking these hits, looking like they're human, and slowly taking the sting out of a game for themselves.
It's going to be a chance for Finlay Scott to get the first points of the evening for Jedforest, who have been under a bit of pressure in this opening quarter of the game. It's their first real visit to the Selkirk 22, and they get the chance to leave with 3 points. It's going to fall down to the right boot of the Jedforest hooker. 56 points so far this season in the Premiership from the boot. He certainly gets underneath it, and you can make that 59 a successful penalty there, and Jedforest are now within 2.
I know, lovely technique from Finlay Scott as well, where the kick, it was very crisp and clean, and like you said with the Adam McComb one, the second it left his foot, there was never any doubt from it. Beautiful noise, and if he's going to kick like that throughout this game's never going to be out of Jed's reach.
Certainly keeping Jed in touch after starting the game and under a lot of pressure, especially up front. They've found their way out of their own half, and they found their way into the scoreboard too. Selkirk 5, Jedforest 3. 20 minutes gone in this first half in Premiership action, and from the kick-off it is now fallen into the hands of Mason Cullen, who acts it downfield. Has been well gathered there by Craig Jackson. He's looking to try and play this quickly, but he's not allowed to, as Mason Cullen just makes himself big, which is very impressive for a man who's about 5'6".
I'm saying nothing as I'm 5'8" in heels, so no, he's much musclier than I am, so I will never comment on that. But he's a very, very talented player, is Mason Cullen. I remember watching him when I was covering him, Jed against Accies. He ran one in from about the halfway line, and he has such a turn of pace. He is a threat from anywhere on the pitch.
A replacement for Jedforest as well, as Gary Munro comes onto the park at scrum half, replacing Bambrick. From the line out, it's a Selkirk ball, and they find Andrew McComb, and Bruce Riddle managing to find his target this time. And now Aaron McComb, he finds Nixon at first receiver, who just looks to punch it straight up and set that platform for Selkirk to launch their next attack. It does fall into the hands of Jackson, who kicks it high into the air. A tester here in these challenging conditions for Lewis Young, but he passes that with flying colours. He returns one back downfield, but it's gone out in the full, and Selkirk are one up in that kicking battle there.
Yeah, they are, but I'm looking here and I'm just watching Ferry. He was getting some treatment while Finlay Scott was taking his penalty earlier, and he's now again in the centre of the field, just getting some attention from the club physio. And it will also be interesting to see why Aidan Bambrick was brought off so early in the game as well. I wonder whether that was tactical or there's a niggle. I noticed he was stretching his hammies, I would say excessively before the game, so maybe he's just carrying something, or maybe just a long day at work's just taking its toll.
It was certainly an able replacement to come on in Gary Munro, who spent a bit of time out of the game as Selkirk win the ball off the top of the line out. Jackson finds Nixon, which is a formidable midfield partnership, although obviously at fly half and 12, but it's been ripped out in the tackle as Nixon looked to try and launch an attack. And Gary Munro with his ever impressive boot downfield, and from the box kick it bounces over the touchline there. It's going to be a throw into the line out for Selkirk, but that is what Gary Munro brings you. He's got a very good boot. He was the man that got the conversion to draw it here in the fixture last season, so he's certainly a positive to come onto the field for Jedforest.
Yeah, somebody who can pin a team back like that is worth their weight in gold on a night like this when it's cold. You almost want to make the opposition make the mistakes rather than have the ball yourself if it's in their half. So yeah, Gary Munro, a big asset to bring onto the pitch.
Another accurate line out there for Selkirk as they just ghost that ball in the face of the Jedforest defence. It's been gathered well there as they again look to launch an attack, and Andrew McComb works hard round from the line out, the man who received that initial ball. And it's a high tackle there from Jedforest. Urston guilty of that as Ross Maben signals that it's going to be a penalty to Selkirk. And in the opening 20 minutes it was all Selkirk, and then Jedforest had about 2 or 3 minutes where they got back into the game, and the game is now being played between the 22s.
Yeah, what they did well is, like you said, they've only had the ball for between 3 to 5 minutes of the opening 20, but they've really pulled, taken that venom out of that Selkirk side that started off so hard, so fast, and they'd clearly set the tempo. So now it'll be interesting to see, do Jed take control of this next 20 of the first half, or are they happy to keep it in this 22 and make it a low scoring game but a really, really attention to detail focused match?
Difficult to build a head of steam in these challenging conditions, but Selkirk do get the ball from the line out. They've got a cohesive maul now, which is slowly but steadily making some gains inside the Jedforest half. It's now over the 10 metre line as Aaron McComb is signalling to the assistant referees that Grant Paxton was perhaps infringing on the side of that maul. Clark Skeldon still in there, and a couple of shirts being pulled over heads, which is part of the reason why I retired. But Ross Nixon now linking up with Craig Jackson, who looks to try and release Josh Welsh. He's got some space here as Ryan Cottrell looks to burst through, but he can't take the ball with him. He's knocked on there, and very good from Selkirk because they managed to get all the defence, the Jed defence, really tight, and that is where you want Ryan Cottrell. You want him in those open spaces, exploiting gaps in defences.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Ryan since I've been watching him at Peebles Sevens this year, and every time I've seen highlight packages of him, watching yourself and Robin commentate on him a few weeks ago, he is that electric player that just changes gears and brings teams and brings players. He can make a dead play, score a try, is how I'd describe it. He is unbelievable, and unfortunately he just couldn't keep the ball in hand that time. But Shivajak basically just took a maul and made it another scrum there. He was walking boys back for fun on that previous play, so it'll be interesting to see how this scrum goes for them now against the Head.
The Polish international has been a bit of a find for Selkirk in that front row, and joined this evening alongside Luke Petty and Bruce Riddle, and the likes of James Bett and Russell Anderson on the bench. And Bruce Riddle obviously able to go across the scrum as well and play prop. As Gary Munro rolls the ball into that scrum, it's a little bit more steady there from Jedforest as it goes out into midfield, and Robbie Urston is now trucking up as Gary Munro gets round to offer his services at half-back. And the referee again signalling that there's a penalty in there. And 5 points to 3, I think Selkirk will be a bit nervous. We've got about 15 minutes left in this first half. Jedforest kicking downfield for the penalty. They certainly make good gains there, but from a Selkirk point of view, they've slightly fainted.
Yeah, it's a definite stumbling block they've had, a slip up, however you would describe it, whether they're just conserving energy if you were trying to give Selkirk the benefit of the doubt. But Jedforest have definitely walked their way back into this game, and now they're walking their way up the pitch with this line out after a great kick from Gary Munro.
Word of advice, Sam, don't check your Twitter, you'll be trolled.
No.
You'll be fine. It's a good line out there from Jedforest, however, and it's just drifted forward as they tried to gather the ball. The line out was accurate, but it has just been knocked on. Ross Maben again continuing the theme of a stop-start border derby. Still remains Selkirk 5, Jedforest 3. 14 minutes or so left in this first half. A first half which has not been littered with highlight moments, but it started brightly for Selkirk with a really dominant forward display. The eventual try fallen to Alan Ferry. It's his first try in Selkirk colours. That's been replied with a penalty from Finlay Scott, and apart from that, the game's been played predominantly in between the 22s. Selkirk looking to try and go through the phases and really test this Jedforest defence, which has leaked a lot of points so far this season. 327 points have been conceded in Jedforest colours, over 30 points a game, but so far they've only conceded 5 here away from home. As the scrum again looks to go forward, Ross Maben keeping a keen eye on that. The arm does eventually go out, and Selkirk just squeeze the penalty out of Jedforest, and they'll be hoping for some territorial gains now.
Yeah, that was almost just a case of they were just waiting for it, really, weren't they? They had Jedforest just going backwards. It was so weird watching the two sets of feet go there. Selkirk looked like they had all the grip in the world, and Jed, they were on ice. They were just skating backwards, and then eventually Ross Maben gives Selkirk the penalty.
Aaron McComb The right foot kick downfield. As I said before, a player that Selkirk are really grateful of the fact that he's remained injury free this season. He's got Scotland Club 15 honours as well as playing for the South. An important player. He's making his 77th appearance in Selkirk colours this evening. A player who plays his best rugby when he gets a run of games, and that's what he's enjoying this season. And it's perhaps no coincidence that Selkirk find themselves fourth in the league, and it is Aaron McComb sweeping up from that line out. The ever versatile Aaron McComb sets up the ball. Luke Petty offering his services as an auxiliary scrum half. A bit of imposter syndrome there at the base of that ruck, but Aaron McComb does eventually get round, but it's gone through the hands of Scott McClyman. But Selkirk do gather the ball, and they'll be looking just to play a little bit more steady now as two players look to try and wrestle for the ball. Two Selkirk players, that is. It was Alan Ferry and also Nixon, but it has ended up in the hands of Ben Pickles, and from a tight, congested area, he almost looked like he was going to break free. Now Luke Petty having to pick the ball off of his toes. He was quick down there to gather that ball and get it under his spell. And now McClyman, and playing in the wider channels, looking to try and test the backs in this Jedforest side. But again, has just been met with a stern royal blue wall. Jackson playing the ball to the line, throws the dummy in. He's been charged back and wrapped up, and the Selkirk cavalry has to arrive and get this ball back on their side. It does just that. And Selkirk managed to make some yards and split through this defence, but they're making mere metres as opposed to anything else. As the option now to kick downfield is fallen into the hands of Ross Dixon, and he punches it downfield, and Selkirk looked like they were going nowhere, and the experience shows when they can kick downfield and put the pressure back onto Jedforest.
Yeah, exactly that. They'd had a few phases there where they just hadn't been given anything, so Ross Nixon identified that the winger had just come up and the fullback had started to drift across to cover that space the winger had left, so he just put the ball through the gap between the two defenders in the line, and then now they're just going to try play from there.
A shortened line out for Jedforest as a few of the Selkirk players are retreating back 10 metres, and it's not came off cleanly, and it's fallen straight into the hands of Riddle. And he charges up and carries Gary Monroe along with him. And now Selkirk look to try and pounce. They smell blood here from 5 metres away from the Jedforest line. And James Head is one of those players who's looking to try and just nudge his way across. And Munro Job now lurking in the wider channels, offering a good option for Aaron McComb. And now Shivajak has just bundled over Robbie Urston. The Selkirk look to get closer and closer to this Jedforest line. The runner's a bit keen there as now Craig Jackson bounces back in field. He's looking to try and make some yards, but Selkirk having to concede here. A little arm in the face there of Craig Jackson from one of the youngs. But they do well to bring the ball back on their side, and it's Andrew McComb who's trucking it up. The ball coming away quickly there. I think it looks like it was Scott McClyman who was sneaking about. It's not, it's Alan Ferry. He is the player who's just scooped the ball up at the back of that ruck. And he snakes over for his second score of the game.
Yeah, I was really worried there what was going to happen when Craig Jackson had all his runners overran it seemed to be, and there was potential for crossing there, but nothing came of it. He managed to get the ball reset, and then, as I said, for the first try, James Head, Alan Ferry, they are just strong runners, and they are not going to be stopped from that distance.
I think Alan Ferry is a great acquisition for Selkirk, because Scott McClyman offers you something completely different in the back row. Aaron McComb offers you something slightly different at scrum half, because he offers you a conversion attempt that's just smacked off the upright, just from the left-hand side of the posts. And the dejected scrum half looks slightly disappointed as he trundles his way back over the halfway line. But that's a definitely 2 points missed there from the scrum half.
Yeah, you'd let him off with the first one. It wasn't the easiest kick, but that second one, a player he's a victim of his own calibre. He is. We expect him to make those kicks because he is that good. It's just unfortunate.
He was instrumental in the build-up to that try, but just can't nudge over the 2 points as Munro Job now takes the ball from the kick-off. And he's asking some questions of the Jedforest defence. As Selkirk look like they've got numbers up, and now the immaculately clean Josh Welsh and Ryan Cottrell link up in the wider channels here on the stand side. It's been well marshalled by Jedforest. And back inside there is Andrew McComb, I think that is, who's managed to just scoop that ball from behind him and take it a couple of yards further forward. The Selkirk opt not to kick from inside their own half and look to protect the ball and go through the phases. As Jedforest set up in a diamond just in behind the defensive line. It certainly looks like it's well covered, but Ryan Cottrell has spotted some space in between Shearer Gibb and Lewis Young. And Lewis Young is the player who's got the ball in hand now as he makes his way up towards the halfway line, but he's been well defended by Andrew McComb, who's had a very impressive start to this game as well, alongside his second row partner James Head. Really, really industrious in that boiler house. And now Clarkson. He's almost isolated there as Bruce Riddle looks to get his hands all over that ball. And Ross Maben agrees with my interpretation of what Riddle done there, got himself in a really good position and forced the penalty.
Yeah, I have so much respect for a jackler that's willing to stick their head there, get in that clean position and literally lock their spine and hips out. And then Ross Maben had the easy decision of just blowing the whistle, because that was a penalty for Selkirk every day.
A good penalty. Selkirk took a gamble in terms of not kicking downfield for territory. They wanted to play with the ball in hand, and the gamble has certainly paid off, because Aaron McComb has just licked that ball inside the Jedforest 22. He's over on the far side. Bob Nevins puts his hand out and signals that it'll be a throw into the line out to Selkirk. Bruce Riddle is there quickly, and the cavalry do arrive. And Selkirk will look to try and hit their target here and put on a little bit of pressure as we approach the final 6 minutes or so in this first half. They currently lead 10 points to 3 against Jedforest, and they hit the tail of the line out, and that is a pinpoint line out there as Alan Ferry, 2 try scorer in this game, secures that ball at the tail, and Selkirk look to try and use their physical dominance up front to good effect. They managed to just splinter round. I think that's Luke Petty who's looking to protect the ball at the back there as the Jedforest players look to get over that, but the referee has deemed that it was a ruck, so it's going to come back on a Selkirk side. If my interpretation of the laws is right, I think that the referee had deemed that was a ruck. Although the Jedforest players look to kill it, Selkirk benefit and get the scrum.
Well, you've got to do what the ref tells you, and if he says it's scrum down Selkirk ball, it's scrum down Selkirk ball. And you have to think, are Jed going to be worried about this, considering how the previous couple of scrums have gone?
10 or 15 metres out, I would fancy Selkirk to nudge that scrum forward, but I fancy it a little bit less when Paulo Ferreira, the anchor, is coming on for Gary Clarkson. He's making his way over to the scrum now, and I think the coaches, and one of them probably Andrew Brown, has maybe identified that this is a dangerous area to be in for Jedforest, and a fresh Paulo Ferreira will add a little bit of bulk to that scrum. I say a little bit, I think I'm probably underplaying that slightly. He adds a lot of bulk to that scrum. A player who knows his way to the try line as well, 5 tries so far this season, but he's not been tasked with any attacking duties so far. It's defensive mode for the replacement prop. And Aaron McComb is just loitering at the tunnel of the scrum, just behind the referee Ross Maben. And that's an interesting battle as well between Gary Monroe and also Aaron McComb, as the scrum goes to ground on the first attempt. As Luke Petty will relish this battle as he has a quick conversation with Paulo Ferreira. A player you said has made a big journey to get here and play in this game.
Yeah, I heard through whispers before we came on air that apparently he was in London today and has been brought back up especially for this big double-header game this evening. So it'd be interesting to see how the legs feel for him if he's been on a plane or indeed a train all day today.
Well, I'll tell you what, he certainly didn't walk back for London. But he's tasked with keeping this dominant Selkirk scrum at bay as we start creaking our necks and looking towards the clock here at Philiphaugh and seeing that we've got about 4 minutes left, and Selkirk will be hoping this is a fruitful 4 minutes where they can build some points as the scrum is steady and Monroe Job takes it off the back. Aaron McComb has now got a chance to try and release some of his teammates, but opts to go it alone. He trucks up as the forwards now look to just pick and go quickly as they can see the Jedforest try line is in their sights. Aaron McComb has managed to get to the back of the ruck. Now Monroe Job acting as the scrum half finds James Head, who's driven laterally across the 5 metre line as Luke Petty now dishes the ball out to Andrew McComb, and Selkirk certainly looking like they fancy another try here. Scott McClyman They've got 3 tries so far this season, but it's going to be a very hard ask to score from there, as there's an abundance of Jedforest players in his road. Bruce Riddle, I think if there's a player who deserves a score in this first half, he's perhaps one of them. Now Aaron McComb having to try and dig about, but he's just nudged over by Shivajak. As Selkirk have to try and protect this ball if they want to get anything from this phase of play. Luke Petty just scooping that up, passing it on to a teammate. Ball now is presented at the back of the ruck. Selkirk charging forward, looking to try and get another score here before half-time, and they managed to do just that. Just as it looked like Jedforest had marshalled that area, they score, and it is the captain, Luke Petty, who managed just to scoop up that ball and squeeze over the line. And I think going from the scrum, dominant scrum, steady scrum, against the replacement Paulo Ferreira, it just shows the energy that Luke Petty has.
Yeah, it's amazing how different 40 minutes is to a team that's had to do nothing but tackle and a team that's had to do nothing but carry the ball. Although it's the same collision, it saps the energy so much, and I think that was just a case for Jed there. They just wanted to see the end of that phase of play. It was great heads up play from the forwards as well. I watched actually Munro job about 2 phases earlier, tried to get that to go back towards the blind side where the gap had came. But then Luke Petty, the ball was recycled quickly, and you're not going to stop Luke Petty out from just the other side of the whitewash, are you?
You definitely are not. And now Craig Jackson takes the kicking tee from the hands of Aaron McComb, and he confidently turns away. And I think it was maybe a bit of overconfidence, because that's another missed kick. 15 points it is for Selkirk. No kicks so far. They could be potentially in a 19-3 lead at half-time, but if it wasn't for the inaccuracy of the kicking, which is really challenging in these conditions, because you just cannot get your planted foot where you want it, and it does lead to the kickers perhaps being a bit askew with the conversion attempts. But as it stands, it's Selkirk 15, Jedforest 5, as Lachlan Ferguson tries to scamper away inside his own half, but he's just met with a cluster of Jedforest jerseys who just charge him back towards his own goal line. Jackson now finds Nixon spilling the ball over to Ross Nixon, who looked to try and ghost it and go in between the defenders, but dropped it onto his toe, but it came off a Jedforest leg and then been knocked forward, and it's going to be a scrum put into Selkirk. But Nixon perhaps had the opportunity, it was Cottrell had the opportunity just to lump that downfield and perhaps relieve the pressure slightly.
Yeah, I think he was trying to just be a bit too cute with the ball there. Is like you said, you've got less than a minute to go in the first half. Just get it away from your trial and get it away from your half of the pitch, and then go into the sheds, get some heat back in the body, and then come out for the next 40.
You would imagine these could be the final stages in this first half, this live Premiership action here on Borders Rugby Radio. And Selkirk currently lead the visitors Jedforest by 15 points to 3. And Selkirk sitting in 4th position in the table. They won't go any higher if they win this evening, but there is an opportunity to go into the Border League final if they win by a bonus point or a clear 11 points. They would go above Hoyk in that pool and find their way into contest for some silverware from the winners of Pool B. As it stands, they would be in that position. The referee, there's a little shrill of the whistle there as Luke Petty is just having a little bit out of Elliot Lauder in the back row.
Yeah, he's taken exception to something Elliot was doing. There must have been some dark arts going on in the scrum there, because Luke Petty had a real issue with something that Elliot Lauder had done during that play.
Ross Maben is having a conversation with the Selkirk captain, the Jed captain, also Lauder, and signalling towards the assistant referee as Luke Petty very rarely holds his tongue. He's looking at a bit of disgust over at the assistant referee and casing his point as he clears his boots and looks to now get on with the scrummaging duties, of which there's certainly the whole Selkirk pack have been dominant so far in this fixture.
One thing's for sure, with the ref and the assistant official now had their attention drawn to it, Elliot Lauder will not be doing that again, whatever he was doing in the previous scrum.
I wouldn't count on it. Jedforest have already had a red card this season, 3 yellow cards. So if I was, I'm not a betting man, but I would say they might chance their arm again in this Tetchy Border derby. It's been pretty well played so far. There've been a couple of niggles and a couple of bits in the close quarters, but that scrum again, Luke Petty getting the upper hand on the Jedforest yet again as McComb breaks from the scrum, finds Jackson, who finds Cottrell, and he sclaffs a kick downfield at centre field, and it's been almost gathered by Mason Cullen, who lets it trundle in between his legs, and now he looks to go in between and splinter the Selkirk defence as the bodies pile in, one of them being Ross Nixon, and Jedforest recycle the ball, give it to Urston, who quickly gives it to Gregor Young, who's got Robbie Shearer-Gibb on the wing. Almost found Robbie Urston on an acute line, but James Head got there quickly, and the Selkirk players get there quickly on the halfway line to clear the jackal from Jedforest. Now Luke Petty, he tips it on there to the 2 try scorer Alan Ferry. He got the first 2 tries in this game. Aaron McComb, I think he's had enough of this. He kicks it off the field of play, and it takes the first half proceedings to a close, and as it stands, it's Selkirk 15, Jedforest 3.
Thank you very much indeed to Dale Clancy and to Sam Mathews. So 3 tries for Selkirk, and Dale, just going to go back on your mathematics there. You did mention 3 conversions missed, and you said 19-3 it could have been.
Yeah, because you'll hate to turn these up again, because I thought the first one they probably shouldn't have got. So I was thinking there was 2 opportunities that they probably should have got. 2 kicks they definitely should have got. Jackson's they should have got, and the one that Aaron McComb hit the post. I thought they should have got them. The other one I'd let them away with. So that's why in my head I had 19. There's method in the madness, Stuart.
A lot of digging going on, a lot of digging. Let's go to the green yards. Robin Purdy is there. He's the latest score from the match in National 1. It's Melrose against Stuart's Melville.
Yes, 8 minutes gone here at the green yards, and it's Stu Mel who are in the ascendancy. 7 points to the good. A world-class try by their winger Michael Jameson from fully 60 metres, converted by Kyle Anderson. It's Melrose 0, Stu Mel 7.
OK, thank you to Robin. At the end of the match, because obviously that's an 8 o'clock kickoff, we'll have the closing stages of commentary from Robin Purdy down at the green yards. We'll be talking international rugby next.
Hello, this is George Ingles here, and I'm thrilled that my songs are now available on 2 albums, Anthology and Lockdown Blues.
Late in the evening, she's wondering what clothes to wear.
Both available on iTunes to download and stream.
I am the train, been gone since 69.
George Ingles Anthology and Lockdown Blues. Check them out now on iTunes and other digital sites.
To commemorate the 7th anniversary of the opening of the Borders Railway, an 8 DVD box set is now available featuring the complete series Borders Railway from start to finish, plus the full hour-and-a-half documentary 5 years on, which examines the possibility of an extension to Carlisle, plus extra features including a cab journey along the entire Borders Railway, all for the special price of just £14.99, including post and packing. You can get your copy direct from hotdisc.co.uk/shop. That's hotdisc.co.uk/shop. The 8 DVD box set, The Complete Borders Railway, is available now.
Hi, Nicky Walker here, Curriculum Learning Manager for Sports and Outdoor Activities at Borders College. Have you ever considered turning your passion for sport into a rewarding career? If so, then why not get in touch at borderscollege.ac.uk/sport.
Borders College, regionally focused, globally engaged.
Based in Galashiels but covering the whole region and beyond, Borders Mortgage Hub is your one-stop shop for all things mortgage related in the Borders. Visit us at bordersmortgagehub.com or call us on 01896 807 008. That's 01896 807 008. Borders Mortgage Hub. Mortgages for the Borders in the Borders.
When the weather's dreich and a storm's a brewing, you need a strong, windproof, quality umbrella delivered with good old-fashioned customer service and at an affordable price. Up here in Umbrella Heaven, we say you tackle the ball, we'll tackle the weather. UmbrellaHeaven.com. Brave the storm.
This is Borders Rugby Special on Borders Rugby Radio.
Yes, live from Philiphaugh tonight, 15-3 is the half-time score. Selkirk leading Jedforest, 3 tries in the bag, so looking for that bonus for a little bit later on. And of course, as we all know, it's a Border League fixture as well, and that means that if Selkirk win by 11 points or get a try bonus win, then that's good enough to get them through into the final. We don't know who they will compete against yet, because Pool B, obviously, Kelso, Melrose and Gala have still got plenty of rugby left in that one, but it would be great for Selkirk to get into a final. Remember, they last won it in 2010, and they haven't done too many over the years since it all started back in 1901. I think they've won it 6 times, including 3 in a row round about the early 2000s mark. Anyway, thoughts on this weekend? We've got Hawick Musselburgh tomorrow in the Premiership. Ayr versus Gala, a huge match in National 1. Kelso, of course, go there next week. Melrose Stewmel already taking place tonight. 8 o'clock kickoff for that one, 7-0 to Stewmel. Watsonians against Stirling County was postponed this evening. And then we've got other clashes tomorrow. Curry against Embrackis in the Premiership. Glasgow Hawks against GHA, a Glasgow derby there. Mar will take on Heriots Blues at Fullerton. And in National 1, a big derby up there, Aberdeen against Highland. It's been a long time since those two met, and that's taking place at Rubislaw tomorrow. Also GHK against Biggar. So Dale Clancy and Sam Mathews here. Just briefly talk about those games. Of course, some tasty fixtures amongst them.
Yeah, I think the first one that springs to mind there is the Hawick Musselburgh game. Hawick have been on a really good roll of form. Musselburgh, obviously, towards the bottom of that league. And Hawick will be looking to really put down a marker. They've struggled for try bonuses, which they managed to get against Jed. Perhaps that is the confidence boost that they needed, to really then move on, because they've been winning, which is the building that habit. It's then getting the bonus points that are, really, really crucial to building that momentum ahead of securing that home playoff spot. So I think that's certainly one to look out for. But, out with the Borders, the Aberdeen Highland game is interesting, because Highland have just shot up the leagues. I know Ellen used to be there or thereabouts, but in terms in Caledonia, I've always said that rugby, recently is probably second, third fiddle in most sports. So it's nice to see that they've actually got some derbies and something to get their teeth into.
And of course, Curry against Embrackis, they're going to be taking some points off each other.
Yeah, it's two very aggressive teams playing against each other. Obviously second and third in the table, Curry second, Aki's third. 4 points in it, so that has real implications for the whole league. And obviously, as Chieftains are only 1 point behind Hawick as it stands, so they're aiming for top spot. And Edinburgh derbies, Aki's always a dominant team as well, so how these two teams go against each other will be really interesting to see, and the result will be detrimental to the league.
Yeah, I think it's interesting for that game, because we're obviously the Selkirk Jed tonight. If that's a favourable result for Selkirk tomorrow, they would be hoping that they get a Curry win, and it closes that gap onto Embrackis, puts a bit of pressure, because I think Selkirk have been consistent in Edinburgh. Aki's have blown hot and cold. They obviously got beat by Heriots as well in an Edinburgh derby, so anything can happen. But in terms of the fixtures this weekend, it's going to start mapping out where everybody's going to finish in the league.
And just briefly, National 1, of course, Ayr against Gala. Ayr in second place, Gala in third place. And of course, Kelso visit Millbrae next week as well. So if the border teams can do a job on Ayr, all of a sudden, Ayr looking a little bit weak.
Yeah, I think so. And, Gala as well, welcoming back Angus Dunn, strengthening their squad a little bit more. They'll be disappointed in the defeat that they suffered to Kelso a few weeks ago at home. It would have really taken the wind out their sails, but this is the sort of big game that they want to get up for again, and then really start getting that momentum and put the pressure back onto Kelso, because Kelso have been really, really good so far this season, and so have Gala. It's just that Kelso have stolen a march, but it starts with Ayr tomorrow, and Gala will be hoping to get the victory, and then start looking at the tails to Kelso to drag them back into it.
Well, before the teams come out for the second half here at Philiphaugh, let's turn our attention to the big match tomorrow at BT Murrayfield between Scotland and Argentina. Dale and Sam are going to have a chat about that as well. Now, Dale, starting with you, Scotland, of course, started with that 1 point loss against Australia. They beat Fiji, underwhelming kind of performance there. Should have beaten the All Blacks. We should be going into this Argentina game 3 out of 3.
Yeah, we should be, and I think that's a disappointing thing, and I think we're now typically Scottish again. I was watching that game at about the hour mark last week, and I thought, this is actually it. This is like a glass ceiling that we're going to shatter. It's been that thing that's just lingered over Scotland for years, and all of a sudden we turned Scottish again. Even Jack Dempsey turned Scottish. It was great. It was just one of those things that it then unravelled for us, and it's just typical Scotland. We're just gallant losers. And I remember speaking to you a few weeks ago saying that I think a success for Scotland is realistically targeting 3 out of 4, and I meant wins. I didn't mean losses, and it's going to be a difficult game. Speaking to somebody at work today, and they were saying, we're going through to the game, it's going to be difficult, and we'll be doing well to beat Argentina. And to have that conversation, you're thinking, how have we ended up in this position again, where we were building so well, and all of a sudden we've kind of regressed slightly, and Argentina I would say start as favourites tomorrow.
Well, for the first time ever, I think I've seen Gregor Townsend so disappointed. I mean, really, really disappointed. Because when I went to interview him afterwards, I was kind of thinking, well, actually, Scotland played pretty well. They had a good performance. And in terms of, leaving nothing out on the pitch in terms of effort, that was my first question. He said, well, we left a lot of points out there on the pitch. And he was just gutted because obviously, after the World Cup, the chances are he might want to decide to step down, or Scotland Rugby will want a change, and that could have been his last chance to get one over on New Zealand, Sam.
Yeah, I was at the game last week as well, and I think I was joking with my brother. I went, Gregor Townsend is actually going to be the one who walks out of the Scotland job after beating New Zealand. I think similar to yourself, Dale, at the 60-minute mark. I was looking at it going, I had that false hope of we actually are going to do it, and then as Dale said, we all became Scottish again, and it came crashing back down to earth for us. But I think the game tomorrow as well, as you said, Dale, they would have been target 3 out of 4 wins realistically. Argentina last after four games of rugby is tough. That's a big, hard-hitting side, and obviously they have players like Buffelli, the Edinburgh man as well, who I think he's actually getting his 50th cap tomorrow as well, isn't he?
In Edinburgh, very appropriate.
Yeah, and he's lights out on the fittingly from the tee today with Selkirk. They're struggling as they go into half-time, but Buffelli's lights out from the tee, so we won't be able to give away penalties from halfway line or closer tomorrow. So Scotland have got a real tough task.
I think with Townsend as well, I think it was almost a marriage of convenience at the time. He was doing well at Glasgow Warriors and his stock was high, and I think Scottish Rugby were apprehensive about paying a lot of money to bring him back because everybody would clamour to have Gregor Townsend back as head coach, and I think Scottish Rugby were perhaps a bit quick to get rid of Fern Cotter and then bring Gregor Townsend in, and I think the period that we had with Gregor Townsend is, I would say it's coming to a close. I don't see him extending any sort of contract with Scottish Rugby. He'll go somewhere else and be coaching again, but hopefully we can get a win tomorrow against Argentina, and we can then start to look towards a very difficult pool in the World Cup.
Indeed. Well, the Scotland sequence, of course, it was inevitable they were going to lose, wasn't it? LLW, 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 L. So according to the sequence, we're going to lose against Argentina, but we will beat England. So we will see what happens if that actually turns out to be the case. But the players coming back on the pitch now, so I'll hand you back to Sam and Dale for the second half of Selkirk against Jedforest.
Yes, Selkirk and Jedforest back on the pitch again as Ross Maven is just having a conversation with Clark Skeldon before proceedings get back underway. Selkirk protecting a 15-3 lead. I did say that they should have had 19 points, but just to clarify, it was because I thought one of the conversions was very tricky. But it's certainly a fragile lead that would have looked a lot better if they could have got those additional points. It's going to be Gary Munro to get play back underway in this second half, and Jedforest playing towards the town end as they just puncher that ball downfield straight down the throat of Scott McClymont, who very rarely holds back in attack as he haunches over and looks to try and make an impact. Another player making it look an impact is James Bett, who's came off the bench at half time. Just having a little look around to see who he has replaced. I can still see Bruce Riddle out there as the ball is just popped into the air and comes off of the knee of a Jedforest player. Back into the hands of Craig Jackson, who looks to split Robbie Shearer-Gibb and also Lewis Young. I'm just having a little look, and I think it is Shafajak who's been replaced for James Bett. So Bruce Riddle will move across in the scrum as Selkirk finds some space in this game of aerial ping pong between the two sides. Gary Munro is the player in action now. Has to kick the ball downfield and it bounces. Craig Jackson just grabs it just before it goes off the field of play, throws the dummy in, and it was Gregor Young who bought it on that occasion, but he had very few options other than to try and stop the pass if he was going to just spray a big ball out wide. Aaron McComb gets the ball away from the base as Ross Nixon finds some space in behind and looks to try and turn the tide as he goes against the grain. Lewis Young, covering the 22, drops the ball onto his right boot and kicks it off the field of play. And it's across the line there, and it's going to be a throw into the line out to Selkirk.
Okay, just dip in for the moment because there's been more scores at the Green Yards. Robin Purdy.
20 minutes gone here at the Green Yards. It's Melrose 5, Stumel 10. Kyle Henderson kicked the penalty to add to his conversion, but on 19 minutes Callum Cruikshanks crashed over for Melrose first try. The conversion was missed by Struan Hutchison, which leaves the score Melrose 5, Stumel 10.
James Head is taking up proceedings for Selkirk here as they look to try and build an attack from that line out. We'll bring you constant updates throughout the evening of how Melrose are getting on at the Green Yards, but Selkirk have just splintered the defence, and Josh Welsh is going to sail in for the bonus point try for Selkirk. He dives over, and brilliant timing from Robin Purdy, but even better timing from Josh Welsh as he manages to get his 70th try in Selkirk colours. And it's Selkirk 20, Jedforest 3.
Yeah, and he's going to get a lot more tries with plays like that from Ross Nixon. Ross Nixon drew the defender perfectly, and that little one-handed offload, just flat as you can against that line. It doesn't give a covering defence any chance to get over how they are going to stop a man who's coming into the line so late at so much pace. And when you have to commit to players like Ross Nixon, he had Pickles outside him as well. The options were there, and that was just a great try to, similar to the first half, start off on the front foot and you never have to catch up.
Ross Nixon has done that for years in Selkirk colours. I remember playing against him, and it was always a very, very difficult game playing against Ross Nixon. A very confrontational player in the most positive way, and managed just to use all his attributes to the great effect to release the very impressive towering Josh Welsh, and now Jackson to try and get the first kick for Selkirk colours this evening, and he's successful from the tee. So perhaps a ropey bit of form from the tee in the first half, but in the second half Craig Jackson gets off the mark, gets a conversion and stretches the lead. Jedforest are now trailing 3 points to 22, and it's going to be an uphill battle to get back into this game.
Yeah, it's going to be, but they've got the players to do it. An interesting thing I've noticed as we just watched the kickoff go back again is Selkirk's commitment to kicking towards a broken field style of game when Jedforest do have Mason Cullen, Lewis Young and Robbie Shearer-Gibb as a back three. They are all talented runners, and they love nothing more than a staggered defence. So it's a weird tactic which has proven to work so far, but it could come back to bite them as this game goes on and players get tired.
It's definitely a Scott White stamp on that game, looking to try and turn the wingers, especially in these conditions. It's very difficult underfoot, and these speedsters that Sam Mathews has just alluded to, perhaps not able to get the traction that they usually would on this field. And from the line out, Paxton, he finds Wardrop, and then Hurston bursting out of his stand position, and then coming in at an acute angle. And now Gary Young working hard off the line out, and Selkirk have done really well to keep him quiet because he's a very dangerous player as the ball from McGough ends up in the hands of Finlay Scott. And Selkirk look to try and steal the ball back on their side. Ross Maben has got a good look at that, and you can hear the cries and the shouts from the stand, the cheers, as they're happy with that outcome. And good work on the floor again from Selkirk to get the ball back on their side.
It was, and it was a great tackle by Aaron McComb as well. He got his opposite number, his opposite player Finlay Scott turned round, and Selkirk's defence, they all just swarmed on that ball, and it was only ever going to be one result. And we are now back in the Jedforest half.
And James Bett is going to get a throw into the line out. A player who's been involved with the Scotland Club 15 in a training capacity, never made the squad. He was actually edged out by Matty Carrier a few seasons ago, but he was certainly there or thereabouts. A player that I rate very, very highly. Coming onto the field to try and make an impact. He finds his target in James Head, and now McComb from his toes manages just to pick it up. Jackson throws the flattest ball you could imagine into the clutches of Scott McClyman, who just manages just to ghost through the hole that was left there. There was a huge chasm in the Jedforest defence, and now Cottrell looks to try and get the ball, but it's just been spilled. I think he was perhaps thought it was far too good to be true for the fullback as he burst into the line and just couldn't gather the ball. As Jedforest now have it back on their side as Skeldon runs right down the throat of James Head, but offloads to Mason Cullen, who manages to find a hole in the defence, and now he's breaking downfield. He looks to go round the first defender, but he's been well marshalled there by the scrambled Selkirk defence. They get back, ball offloaded off the ground. Munro, he manages to get the ball wide. It's now into the hands of Kyle Grieve. They set up the platform just shy of their own 10 metre line, 15 metres in from the stand side. Now Clark Skeldon looks to try and draw this Selkirk defence in and leave some pockets out wide, as the ball now into the hands of Hurston. Hurston does find Lewis Young. He's been met by 3 or 4 Selkirk players who are getting there pretty quickly. Gregor Young, the twin brother, there to try and sweep up, but Gary Munro has got the ball as the play comes down at a bit of a pedestrian pace, playing the advantage, and the referee is going to go for the scrum there. It did start to stagnate slightly. I think Gary Munro perhaps thought the penalty was coming, but it wasn't coming there. It was the advantage for the knock-on, but Selkirk almost looking like they're going to score, but that's the danger that Jedforest have, because they can be pinned inside their own half, and they've got the sevens expertise that they have at their arsenal. They're able to break from anywhere on the field.
Yeah, and it's not only the speed of the back three that we spoke about as well. It's the turn of pace. It's the 1 foot in the ground and go. There's none of this. For example, when I used to run, it was like turning buses, but it's like there's none of this 4-step slow down. It's foot planted and gone in a different direction. So you can't commit to this tackle. You have to be there. You can't make an assertive hit on guys like this. And then, like you said, they've turned it around in the blink of an eye. We thought Cottrell was going to go clean through. He has a slight knock on, 2 phases gone, and Mason Cullen's taking it all the way to, they're now just outside the 22 of Selkirk.
It was a good bit of broken field running from Mason Cullen, who managed just to show his leg drive in contact and burst away from the challenge inside his own half and got play up and towards the Selkirk 22 where we are sitting now. And it's Gary Munro with his hands on the ball. The scrums eagerly awaiting as the steam from their breaths just litters into the air as Munro rolls the ball in. He comes to the back of that scrum, and it's a steady scrum from Jedforest, and McGough gives it to Urston. He's got a young on his shoulder, but he's got Mason Cullen out the back, who looks to try and go straight through Josh Welsh, the most recent try scorer, but he's managed just to rip the ball out of him as Lachlan Ferguson looked to try and sweep up. And now McComb thinks he's got numbers up on this side, Munro Job being one of them. He gets his knees to the ground as Lewis Young looks to choke the life out of the youngster in the tackle. McComb finds Ferry. Ferry tips onto Bet. He looked to try and tip onto Bet, but the dummy runner was there and he kept hold of it, knowing the danger was there. Now out the back to Cottrell. That's a great pass as he finds McComb. McComb's got Josh Welsh, who's now got some space over that far side, and he feeds Ben Pickles. And Jedforest look to try and get their hands on the ball pretty quickly and make a mess of this ruck. They manage just to put a bit of pressure on Aaron McComb, and the ball goes back and falls into the hands of Craig Jackson. He looks to set the platform now. The ball is back on a Selkirk side as Aaron McComb feeds James Head. Pretty quiet in the last 5 minutes, but again offering up his services for some industrious carrying. Now James Bett now powering in at the challenge as 2 Jedforest players just drive him back. One of them, Gary Young. Now into the pocket, Craig Jackson. He finds Josh Welsh, who's certainly sparked into life in this second half. A great try as they look to go down the blind side now. Craig Jackson just kicking downfield. It's Gary McComb who's gathered the ball, but he feeds Lewis Young. And now Jedforest look to try and spark their own attack. Lewis Young rides the first challenge, then kicks downfield. If this can stay in field, it looks dangerous, but Ross Maben is going to bring play back, and I think it perhaps is going to be a penalty to Jedforest. And that was the danger there. Broken field running, one of the Youngs with their hands on the ball. They can score from anywhere in the park, and even in these difficult conditions, they are dangerous for Jedforest.
Yeah, and they have such an understanding of what each other are going to do as well. They almost know what his preferred angle of running is. They know how he wants to attack the next phase. So I think we saw there, they just know it's frightening how telepathic they almost are working together. You don't have that split second you normally get when there's communication involved, because it is so regimented on how the other one works.
Ross Maben is just having a little conversation with the assistant referee, who is pointing at bits of the park. I'm not too sure, we've not got the mic in our ears as to what has been going on, but the referee is going to have a conversation with Clark Skeldon. He is gesturing towards the Jedforest team as well. We'll keep a keen eye on this, and I think perhaps it's going to be a reversal of the penalty, and it's going to be a penalty to Selkirk in a really, really attractive position just outside the Jedforest 22. So a little bit of ill-discipline coming into the Jedforest ranks there, and they're going to kick downfield, and it's going to be Aaron McComb to pin Selkirk into the corner.
Yeah, I think what I saw, it was Craig Jackson and Gary Munro had a bit of afters, and I think Gary may have just not thrown a punch or anything, but I think he did just give him a clap round the back of the head after it might have been a slightly late hit. So obviously the refs have said we're not having any of that, this is how it's going to go, and penalty Selkirk.
Just on the banking on the far side, a cluster of Hoyk players are watching on at this line out. Just in front is James Bett, who finds Ferry in the line out. It's a game which is not on their radar, Hoyk, certainly in the next 4 fixtures. Aaron McComb now feeds to Craig Jackson. He evades the first challenge from Finlay Scott, who dances back in field, but he is eventually wrapped up as Jedforest managed to thwart that attempted attack there from the experienced fly half. McComb now finds Nixon, who acts as first receiver. He finds James Head, who bounces off Robbie Urston. And I think Urston has come off second best, a player who's not had the best of luck with shoulders, but Pickles now has just ghosted that ball in front of Cottrell. It's just went through the legs of Lachlan Ferguson, but Robbie Urston is still on the ground, and I think he's taken an almighty clatter from James Head, and that does not look good for the Jedforest inside centre.
No, and obviously they've got Rory Marshall out at the moment as well, so that's not good news when they see another centre go down for them.
I think Owen Cranston, I think it's good to see Robbie Urston has actually managed to raise both his arms above his head. A player that has had a lot of trouble with injuries in the last few years. A couple of players are going round just to check that he is okay. And Jeff Cullen is also on the pitch, the Selkirk part of the Selkirk medical team, so great to see that the player welfare is at first and foremost at the mindset here this evening. It's still a Selkirk 22, Jedforest 3. We've played about 12 minutes in the second half, and Robbie Urston is just receiving some attention after taking an almighty clatter from James Head. Just a reminder that Melrose are also entertaining Stuart's Melville this evening at the Green Yards. We'll bring you constant updates on that throughout the evening, and we'll hear from Robin Purdy at the conclusion of this fixture and bring you the final parting shots of that battle at the Green Yards at the conclusion of this fixture here, as Robbie Urston manages to get himself back on his feet. His hands are above his head, taking in a few breaths as well, and fortunately, because I think he's a cracking player, fortunately he's going to maintain his position at inside centre. I don't think he'll be forthcoming in trying to chop down James Head next time anyway. Now it's going to be a throw into the line out. It's going to be Finlay Scott for Jedforest. It's a full line out there. Scott McClymont just running away from it, and it's Skeldon who's lifted highest there, just on the Jedforest 22. The maul's not as constructive and cohesive as they probably liked, as they're being marched back by Selkirk, who are standing this up, and they're making a mess of this. And if this goes to ground, I would imagine the referee would trill his whistle and give the put into the scrum to Selkirk, and that's exactly what happens there. And it's a bit one-sided in the second half, Sam.
Yeah, it's starting to look that way, isn't it? I think Luke Petty's just letting the Jedforest forwards there know how well Selkirk did in that passage of play. But yes, this is starting to look very one-sided and very similar to the first half as well, where the Selkirk really decided to set up camp on the Jedforest 5-metre line.
It was a year ago that these two teams played a rearranged fixture. It was actually at Riverside, but it was on the 12th of November. Selkirk did win that game 9 points to 21. There was also the game conjoined with that. It was a 10-all draw with a Gary Munro last-minute conversion, so they're very familiar of these really physical battles and border derbies in November. They're becoming very accustomed to it, because it was the exact same scenario this season. Obviously the game postponed after the death of Queen Elizabeth II. And now from the scrum, Lachlan Ferguson bounces back in field. He does well to evade the first challenge after some great work from Munro Job off the base of the scrum. I've been very impressed with that youngster as well. And now James Head, he tips on, and then perhaps Alan Ferry just a little bit flat. And the link up between the ex-Melrosians not working that time. A little bit of lack of communication. Ferry perhaps getting guilty of getting a little bit flat. And Head doing well just to tip that ball on, but that's a chance going to begging for Selkirk as they make a replacement and take off Ross Nixon, and it's going to be Jack Hamilton to come on to replace him, which will mean Aaron McComb will go to fly half and Craig Jackson will probably slot in at 12.
Nice. You've marshalled that shuffle very well there, Dale. I was waiting for the phases of play to go on there to see what was going to happen, but it brings a completely different attacking dynamic as well now. Aaron's obviously got a good pace of ball about him, so now having him at that first receiver is really going to dictate how fast they can zip the ball out to the wingers, especially as we said, we watched it there, Lachlan Ferguson almost slipped when he took that ball off the base of that scrum, so be interesting to see how this now affects with the tempo increased by Selkirk in the back line.
From the scrum, Gary Munro just goes back into the pocket himself and punts it downfield. It's been a slightly messy gathering there from Ben Pickles, and then he starts burrowing himself into the ground as he trips over his own feet, and the penalty goes the way of Jed. And the winger, who's not had a lot to do this evening in terms of with ball in hand, he gets an opportunity there and doesn't gather the ball cleanly, and then perhaps becomes a bit too eager to try and make amends as Gary Munro kicks the ball downfield from the penalty inside the Selkirk 22. and Jedforest now get to turn the tide.
Yeah, no, we spoke about them wearing white shirts, maybe be victims of being a bit too clean if they think they've not done enough, but that's not a way to go about getting your shirt dirty. The almost fumbling of the ball and then not being able to get your own feet underneath you, and now Jed really have to capitalise on this to get this scoreline back to a manageable stage.
Yeah, certainly time is of the essence for Jedforest. We've got about 15 minutes left in the 25 minutes left in the second half. 15 minutes gone, and Finlay Scott again finds Skeldon, and he tries to just drop the ball kindly into the basket of Gary Monroe, but it's just skiffed off his fingertips and been knocked forward. As Selkirk recall some more replacements, and it's a return for Callum Anderson, the first appearance after a long time out with a groin injury, and also Andrew Cochrane is trundling onto the pitch. It'll be interesting to see who they replace.
I think it's Ben Pickles coming off actually for Callum Anderson.
I think it is. Ben Pickles is just making his way underneath the sticks just now.
James Head as well, that's a talismanic loss for Selkirk there, a real leader of men in this first half.
I do wonder whether Selkirk want to try and play a little bit more expansive, because they've taken two big ball carriers off and they've got a lot of industry coming off of the bench, especially Callum Anderson, a very impressive playmaker. And I'm just trying to, I don't know this reshuffle as well, but I don't know whether he will go into I think perhaps Cottrell will go into the left wing, and then Callum Anderson will go to fullback. But Jedforest from the scrum managed to find Urston. He breaks the first challenge, and it's Jack Hamilton who's got the first chance to try and defend this. Callum Anderson was there as well, who is slotting in at fullback. Now Jedforest, Paulo Ferreira is loitering there with intent at the back of that ruck, and Jedforest again just trying to make this hard yards. Finlay Scott with his blue skull cap on, and now Ferreira looks to try and up the ante and catch Selkirk unawares as the ball comes out at the back of that ruck, and Jedforest come again. They look to try and go quickly and try and dislodge the Selkirk defence. They go left, centre field, camped right underneath the sticks. They look to get closer and closer to that line. Gary Young is just staring down Ross Maben, asking for him to award the try, but it's no doing there for the referee. They're not over the whitewash yet, as Clark Skeldon is driven back as well. And now Gary Monroe is sizing up his options. He spills it into the hands of Young. Young's got some options out there as well, and Mason Cullen is the one that's going to dive over in the corner, and Jedforest do get their score, and that was all from the hard work of the forwards, eventually getting the space out wide as the Selkirk defence became quite tight towards the phases of play, and it allowed Mason Cullen loads of space over wide just to dart in at the corner for a score.
Yeah, thoroughly deserved by Jed as well, you have to say. That was great drive from the forwards. They beautiful. It's almost like a maul the way they've rolled that across to the left there, and as you said, Mason Cullen, the rest of his back line, they watched as the defence just slowly went with that forward pack and then just shipped it back out right. Gary Monroe, heads up player, he knew what was happening about 6 phases before it did, and sure enough, Mason Cullen's got the fast feet to get himself over the whitewash from there.
A few replacements are lining up to come off of the bench, as Finlay Scott is just lining up a very tricky conversion attempt from the banking side. As we can see, Andrew Sweeney and Owen Cranston deployed from the guns cabinet. And Finlay Scott has made a great connection with that, and for an evening of poor kicking, that is certainly the pick of the bunch, as he manages to split the kindling from out wide, and it's a brilliant kick from the hooker.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, and same again as his first one. Beautiful technique, and never in doubt the second it left his foot. Bit of distance, but it was always going the right direction.
22 points to 10 then here at Philiphaugh in Tennent's Premiership action, and now it's a very slender lead. Remember, the Border League final is up for grabs for Selkirk, and they now lead by 22 points. They've qualified if they can get the win, because they've got the bonus point, but Jed are clawing themselves back into this game, and now backfield into Robbie Urston's hands. Jack Hamilton having to gather that one and just bullets the ball into McComb, who finds Anderson, who's got an early tester for that groin, and he's going to come out this one unscathed as Jack Hamilton's digging about in the ruck to find Jackson, who gets the ball well out of his hands quickly. It isn't in the hands of Josh Welsh. He kicks downfield, and Jedforest do well there to get a limb in the road, and the ball ricochets forward off of Robbie Urston's legs. and it almost fell into the clutches of a Selkirk player, but Josh Welsh didn't have many options, but the ball from Craig Jackson was immaculate, straight into the outside centre, who managed just to ghost round.
Yeah, and a very underrated skill that I love that Craig Jackson has is every pass is always exactly where it needs to be. There's never a case of off the toes or above the head. It's always out in front, perfect at that chest height, and it makes such a difference to line speed and attacking play.
His ball skills are really, really impressive. Can play 12, can play 13 as well, can play fly half obviously, but his distribution is immaculate on most occasions. He just gets the ball, keeps it off his chest and manages to travel the ball across his body, and he got a lot of pace on that ball, which did outstretch the Jedforest defence. Put into the scrum now for Jack Hamilton. He's just loitering there, looking to try and get that ball in. And perhaps as the reset scrum here, we can hear how proceedings are getting on at the Greenyards.
Yes, half-time at the Greenyards now. Melrose against Stuart's Melville. Here's Robin Purdy.
Half-time here at the Greenyards. It is Melrose 19, Stewmel 13. Since Callum Cruikshank crossed for Melrose, they've added further tries through Struan Hutchison and James O'Neill, with Hutchison converting both, and a penalty was kicked for Stewmel by Kyle Henderson. So half-time score, like I say, Melrose 19, Stewmel 13.
Melrose obviously locked in a battle at half-time at the Greenyards. It's very close against Stewmel, who are finding they're going pretty tough in National 1 after the promotion from Nat 2 last year. And back here, and the Selkirk still lead 22 points to 10. They've won the free kick from the scrum, and now Aaron McComb, he fishes the ball out wide. An outrageous pass there. Callum Anderson, for God knows what reason, has looked to try and kick the ball over the defence, but Lewis Young has done well to gather that. He had a man outside him, and perhaps the easiest option there was to pass it. And perhaps a lack of game time there for the replacement fullback has been illustrated there, because it was a try-scoring opportunity after the good work from Aaron McComb, but Jedforest look to try and play out from their own half. The ball is bouncing about inside the goal area. Try and keep a keen eye on this as they kick downfield, but the referee is going to bring that back for a scrum, and for the life of me, I don't know what Callum Anderson was thinking there.
No, I have no idea, especially after Aaron McComb fizzed such a beautiful pass over. He must have heard us talking about Craig Jackson's ball distribution, because that was beautiful. And then, like you said, I think game time and experience, and maybe a bit of, although not exactly on the try line, but a bit of try line fever, and then he tried to make the spectacular play, but Jed have managed to dig themselves out of a pretty deep hole there, and now have a bit of breathing room between them and their own try line.
Brilliant to see he's gesturing what he was trying to do to his teammates, but obviously the application of it was slightly different. But the young playmaker, he's a very talented player, but obviously just not able to find his target there. Looked to try and be perhaps a little bit too clever when he had to go back to basics, but it's an opportunity which passes Selkirk by this time. 22 points to 10, they still lead. The bonus point is well and truly in the bag. They now just need to get over the line, and not only will they consolidate their place in fourth position in the Tennent's Premiership, but they will also find themselves top of Pool A in the Border League, which would mean they would make their way through to the Border League final and compete for the oldest rugby union trophy in the world.
I think what's actually quite interesting as well is when we went through to Robin there at the Greenyards, they've actually brought Selkirk have actually brought Shivajak back on. So I don't know whether that was because, as we'd both pointed out, Jed had really managed to shore up the scrum a bit. It wasn't quite that first half dominance that Selkirk had, so I wonder whether they're maybe trying to turn the screw again by bringing some of the players that started the game back on to really cement this win.
Russell Anderson is a player that came onto the field, but he is now off, so it's going to be a return for Alan Ferry. And obviously with James Bett still on the field of play as well, they've got a hooker there, so James Bett will move up from the back row. He will slot in at hooker, as Russell Anderson will get some attention on the sidelines, which means Alan Ferry, who's already got 2 tries in this game, will return and just pack down on the blind side. Open side at the moment is Scott McClyman, who's still wearing the number 7 jersey, and he's certainly been about the park because you can barely see his number now. So he's in typical fashion, the farmer has been rolling about in the mud. He's had a good game, and Alan Ferry has complimented the work that the wiry back row has done. Jack Hamilton puts the ball into the scrum. He's starting to get a little bit ahead of steam there, but Jedforest do well to thwart that as Craig Jackson just takes it straight to the line and bursts through the first challenge, but he's got Robbie Uriston wearing him as a belt as he almost charged closer towards that line. Now Scott McClyman looks to try and weave his way in between the bodies, and he does get over. Scott McClyman gets the score, and he gets his 4th try of the season. And he puts further daylight in between these two teams. It's now Selkirk 27, Jedforest 10.
And Scott McClymont's got his reward for all the hard work he's been doing throughout this game. He now gets his name on the score sheet. A little piece, like we spoke about the basics that have been done so well by Craig Jackson and Aaron McComb, but what Munro Job did there so well was he actually shifted himself from between the two second rows at the base of the scrum to between the flanker and the second row to really give Aaron McComb Aaron McComb's not playing 9 now, to give the scrum half that space to just really get that pass off and not have that disruption in it, and then that just really increased the tempo. And a few phases later, Scott McClymont is over the try line to really put this game to bed for Selkirk now.
And Craig Jackson adds the extras. The conversion is there, and it means that it is now Selkirk 29, Jedforest 10. And it's certainly a good turnaround after Selkirk invited some pressure from Jedforest, who looked like they were clawing themselves back into this game, but just not able to. As it's kicked down the throat of Selkirk now as they look to play outside from their own 22. The try scorer Scott McClymont acts as a pivot. He finds Aaron McComb, who fishes the ball over to Callum Anderson. He'll be looking to try and make amends after his earlier error. He maybe got a little bit flat in that cut there, but the ball bouncing about in between the two wingers there is, winger, it was actually Lewis Young who's playing at fullback. Lewis and Gregor Young were mixed up on that far side. Nobody wanting to gather the ball. It's been knocked forward, but it's going to be a put into the scrum to Jed. And Callum Anderson is trying to make an impact in this game, but just not rubbing off for the young lad.
Yeah, he's really trying to bring himself into this game. I think he needs to just have a few phases of play where you just get the mud on your fingers, get used to the pace of the game. I mean, credit to him, he's really trying to stamp his authority over it. But let the game come to you. You've got that commanding position. Your team around you is playing so well. Just let it flow as you're doing. You don't have to score a try every time you touch the ball.
The Callum Anderson, Craig Jackson, Aaron McComb, all playmakers in their own right, and is still out in the field. And it shows that Selkirk have a lot of talented rugby players out there, as do Jedforest. The likes of Urston and Munro. Ricardo Ferreira is now on the pitch. He's been brought off the bench as a replacement, and he's acting as the dummy there. It's now Mason Cullen off that scrum, working hard off his wing, and they've won the penalty here as Jedforest are camped centre field, just on the Selkirk 22. Now Wardrop, he drops a shoulder and just makes a few yards as Gary Munro just puts that on the outside of his boot to test Callum Anderson, who does really well, and then he's clattered for his worries as he manages to get the ball away. But the shrill of the whistle from Ross Maben means that there's going to be a penalty to Jedforest and play's going to be brought back. Yeah,
I think that was for the high tackle of Mason Cullen actually, so it'd be interesting to see how they do this now. I assume they've got to go for the corner with the time left.
Yeah, Gary Munro, as accurate as you like, stabs it into the corner. The assistant referee signalling that it's going to be a throw into the line out, and although Selkirk have had the upper hand in the scrum, it's a different battle at the maul, and if Jedforest can get this down quickly and set it before the defensive maul is set, then this could spell danger for the home side. It's an accurate line out. He's been hoisted high and kept high for a while, and Selkirk engaged pretty early, and they're all over Wardrop there. And all over the cluster of players as Luke Petty looks to try and get his turgid figure in an awkward position. And now Urston spills the ball over to Gregor Young. Gregor Young looks to try and pass it out the back door, and the loose ball was almost punted downfield by Cottrell. He just couldn't make a connection with it. His players got scrappy, and it's well away from the Selkirk 22 now. The advantage is there for Jedforest, perhaps from a knock-on. And now Finlay Scott, standing stationary, and then gathers the ball and charges towards the defensive line. Wardrop again, carrying hard as he has done all evening with his second row partner. The ball ghosted in front there. Robbie Urston looked to try and find a runner, but it's went right in front of the defensive line, and it's trickled off the field of play. And the referee is going to bring that back. I think he's signalling that was a forward pass, is he?
I think he is saying forward pass, but they've given the line out now, so obviously just out of play.
Yeah, get the option there. Yep. I think Ross Maben has signalled that it was a forward pass. You get the option for the forward pass or the line out, because the ball did exit the field of play, and there's another player looking to try and receive some medical attention. That player looks like it's Josh Welsh. I don't think he's opposing to the medical assistant, but he's down on one knee, getting a little bit of a little bit of support and help.
Looks like the back of his head. I think he might have a bump or a cut, the way they're attending to that.
We've got 10 minutes left in this game. You'd imagine that the 19 points is a little bit too much to overturn for Jedforest, but they certainly could still have a lot to say in terms of who's going to be playing in that Border League final, because the 19 points at the moment is the difference, if my maths is correct. And Jedforest can still get back into this, because Selkirk, they can overturn this, they can get back into this game, and perhaps, although Selkirk do have the bonus point, they could turn this game around and stop them getting the Border League final.
Yeah, it's 11 points is the deficit?
Well, 11 points, or they get the bonus. They've got the bonus points, so Jedforest have got 10 minutes to try and get 19 points, so it's going to be a hard ask.
But, as you said at the very start of the game, a Borders League derby, people like to cause upsets, so Jedforest will have that in mind and they will be going for it.
From the line out, Sweeney has got the ball from the ruck, which congregated just after that set piece, and now Gary Monroe gets there to the breakdown and finds Urston as fly half, just bouncing back in field. Robbie Urston is equally as comfortable at inside centre and at fly half. And now yet another carry there from Jedforest has been met with some really stern Selkirk defence. Andrew McComb just rubbing a little bump on his head, and it was Dan Wardrop who carried the ball forward yet again, but nothing doing for Jedforest at this time, and it's just probably a matter of managing the game now for Selkirk and not getting too keen.
And then we spoke about James Head for having a great game with the ball in hand with his running, but Andrew McComb in defence, his tackles I don't think he's missed one this evening, and he's won the collision as well, so he's been just as influential in this game.
Andrew McComb is a very unassuming rugby player. I think when you look at him, he doesn't strike fear into the opposition that much, but his energy and work rate when he's got the ball in hand and also off the ball is something that, once opposition teams get to know him, they know he's a very difficult customer to deal with for 80 minutes. And he's had another impressive outing in a Selkirk jersey. He just recently returned from his travels on the other side of the world, and Selkirk have welcomed them back to Philiphaugh with open arms as Jack Hamilton puts the ball into the scrum. It's starting to go sideways, but it certainly looks steady just now as the referee signals for the penalty for Selkirk, and they'll welcome that, get a breather, kick downfield, try and gather the ball and play in an area that they're perhaps a little bit more comfortable in.
And then Shavajak has had a great game as well, just in that scrum dominance, and he's not touched the ball much in open play, but he has just been there, and he is that pillar of safety for them on that set piece.
Aaron McComb with his new facial fuzz just above his top lip kicks that ball over the touch line. Obviously you can tell it's November. November is well underway with the sceptical moustaches which are on display at Philiphaugh this evening and for such a great cause as well. And now James Bett to throw into the line out, just on the 10 metre line inside the Selkirk half. He finds Andrew McComb, who gets a big pot of that and brings it back. An accurate pass from Hamilton as well. Eventually finds McComb, finds Jackson. It's been punted downfield off the left boot of Callum Anderson, and he's certainly made a positive impact there as he's kicked it downfield towards the Jedforest line. It's had to be gathered there by Lewis Young. Returned back downfield. Craig Jackson was lurking there, and he pins the lugs back and looks to try and steal a march on the opposition. Now Lachlan Ferguson can try and go. He brings a teammate into play, bursting off of his wing as Hamilton is quick there to the breakdown. The supporting players for Selkirk will have to be quick to get to this one as well, and Hamilton is there digging about in the ruck. McComb finds Russell Anderson, who bursts through, and is Russell Anderson going to go for a score? He dives over, welcomed his first child last week, and he gets his first score for Selkirk in his first appearance for the Suitors, and it's you'd say that's job done now for Selkirk.
Yeah, absolutely, and what a great try that was as well. Some good running. He really made two defenders have to think on who was going to commit to that tackle, and in that time of their indecision he just said, see you later, and then I'll see you at the end of the game because I'm going under the sticks. That was a great try from him, and it was beautiful play by Craig Jackson as well to spot the space when he got the kick back returned by the Jed back three. He managed to take it, really utilised the players coming at such an angle, got that face set up there, and then quick ball quite through, and as I said, Russell Anderson made the men indecisive and then took control of the situation.
Settled into life at Selkirk pretty quickly, the ex-Southern Knights and Melrose hooker. A lot of experience, the ex-Langham hooker in Scotland age grade and club representative as well. He gets his first score. It's a a week of firsts for Russell Anderson, and it's been capped off nicely with a score, and Craig Jackson adds his influence to this fixture as well with a conversion, perhaps the easiest conversion of the evening in front of the sticks, and it stretches a lead here. It is now Selkirk 36, Jedforest 10, and we've got about 5 minutes to go here, and Gary Munro is tasked with getting the ball downfield and trying to get Jedforest in an attacking position. Scott McClyman, he gathers the ball, and Jack Hamilton is the recipient from the back row, tries to kick it downfield, and it's a fortunate bounce, and it eventually does go off the field of play, and Jedforest will get the throw into the line out. But it was an excellent score, and it's a great exit, especially after you concede or score points. It's critical that you go through your repertoire and get the ball away from your danger area.
Yeah, exactly that. You don't let the tempo stop just because the scoreboard's changed. And as you say, Jed have now got it all to do in this final 5 minutes to get this scoreline back to a more respectable stat.
Finlay Scott, he throws the ball to his captain again, but Andrew McComb just got in between the hooker and the big second row, and now bodies bundling in. There's another sense of deja vu here, because the Hoyt-Jed game did filter into a bit of a slugfest in the last 5 minutes, and I do wonder whether this fixture is going to go into a same trajectory. And Jack Hamilton at the back of that ruck, just slowing play down, puts the ball into the air off his left boot, and Luke Petty's got his spikes on, and he's clattered Owen Cranston, who gathered that ball. He was trying to pirouette out of contact, but Luke Petty showing a lot of energy there as Gary Munro returns it back downfield. And Jack Hamilton just watching that, just bounce in front of his 22 and feeds it over the head of Aaron McComb into the hands of Callum Anderson, left-footed kick downfield. Cranston, he's got no pressure this time, and he feeds Lewis Young. Lewis Young just sizing up his options and bounces off his right foot, looks to evade the first challenge, but again he's been well defended. Callum Anderson making the tackle this time. Play now up and towards this halfway line. Finlay Scott getting round the corner to carry in the first phase yet again. In terms of a Jed point of view, he's had a very impressive game as well, and so's that man Dan Wardrop, the second row. He's carried with great endeavour all evening. And Ferreira now, Ricardo Ferreira, he finds Lewis Young, who's got some space in broken field. Now Andrew Sweeney just coming off from the open side to the blind to offer up his support. Now Skeldon just fishing the ball over to Cranston, he evades Ferguson, he looks to try and go inside with Jack Hamilton, but the wiry little scrum half manages just to wrap round the charging Jedforest player, and play now stagnant at the ruck. The referee has spotted a penalty, and Jedforest will be looking to try and go quickly as we enter the dying embers of this game. And remember, we're bringing you live action from proceedings at the Green Yards following the conclusion of this game, as Melrose are playing Stuart's Melville. They were leading 19 points to 13 at half time, and Robin Purdy is waiting there with bated breath, ready as we look to join him at the conclusion of this, what is going to be you would imagine, a Selkirk victory. But Jedforest will look to try and get something at the end of this game, just to give them some hope, building into their next fixture, which is ironically against Selkirk at Riverside.
Well, you never know, the form might be different when you're at home. It's a different kettle of fish, but Jedforest haven't played bad this evening. They've had, as you've highlighted, some players have had some great performances. Kyle Scott's been phenomenal off the tee and in open play. Dan Wardrop's carried every time as hard as he possibly can. He's never taken a back step, so don't take this away. This is two good sides have gone at each other tonight, and Selkirk are going to realistically come away the victors. But as you said, Jedforest will want to be the last try of the evening.
Jedforest's last 3 games have been Hoyt, Curry and Marr. So if you were to say to Jedforest that over a 5-week period in the Premiership they'd have to play those teams and Selkirk twice, I think it would have been met with a lot of trepidation. But that is the hand that they've been dealt. But they've competed in them all. They've beaten Marr. They got 20 points against Curry, but they fell foul to an 11-point deficit, and then were put to the sword by Hoyt. 26 points to 7 they were defeated, but they'll look to try and end this game on a high and get some more points in this game. Gary Munro just marshalling and driving this maul closer towards that Selkirk line. It does come out, and he moves horizontally across that pitch, and as do Jedforest, very lateral as they're pressured to go in wide. The ball's not came cleanly out of that ruck, and it does bounce into the hands of Gregor Young eventually, and Jedforest are having to try and get there to gather this ball, but Gregor Young does eventually get out of that ruck. He manages just to burst that ball away from his teammates and find a little gap, and he camps down on the Selkirk 22, about 15 metres from the touchline. And Jedforest now through the hands of Gary Monroe. Now Urston trying to pass to a Jedforest player who's pretty flat as James Bett has to get back and gather, but he's passed a loose ball. The referee is going to bring that back, but it was almost dangerous there for Selkirk. There's been a knock on, a put into the scrum, and you would think that both teams now are just praying for the final whistle. They both know that the game is gone. It's going to be a very comprehensive Selkirk victory, but I think both teams in these very sticky conditions have given everything.
Yeah, and I think so. I think our clock's saying here that it's coming down to near the end of the 40, and I think with a few stoppages for various injuries in the second half, as we can come to expect in a modern day game of rugby, I think, like you said, I think the final 2 minutes are just going to be a case of see this out, get in, get warm. Congratulations on Selkirk on your victory. We'll see you again next week, and we'll do it all over again.
Yes, these are familiar foes. A year on from meeting in a double header, they're going to do it again in reverse order this time, as Selkirk travel to Riverside Park next weekend, which is going to be a completely different game. Selkirk certainly victors in this game, a full 5 points in the bag, and Jedforest will be looking to try and make amends. They got a draw in this patch last year and then were defeated heavily at Riverside Park, and they'll be hoping that they can try and turn the tide, as Jedforest have well and truly settled to life back at amateur club rugby's top table, established themselves as an established member of the Premiership, but finding goings difficult against Selkirk over the last 2 seasons, and that is not going to come to a halt tonight. 36 points to 10. They trail here. We're in the closing stages of this second half in the Premiership, where we will follow it with National 1 action with Robin Purdy, as Melrose look to try and build on their half-time lead against Stuart Melville. Jack Hamilton from the scrum here, as Selkirk have got a final roll of the dice. Aaron McComb throws a dummy, but he's been wrapped up well there by the Jedforest defence. Robbie Urston, one of the players, definitely there, as the ball's tipped back in field. Selkirk looking to try and end this game quickly. The penalty is going to go the way of Selkirk. There was a big carry there from Andrew Cochrane, and Selkirk from deep inside their own 22 do manage to get closer towards that halfway line, and you'd imagine now they'll get the chance to have another attacking platform.
Yeah, you have to think they're going to go for one final try. Do they really try and cement that almost mindset defeat as well, knowing you've got to play us again, and we were scoring right up until the very final whistle?
I think at half time it was 15 points to 3. I would never imagine that it would have been close to being a 40-pointer in Selkirk's favour, but in the second half they have come out a different beast. It was a try from Josh Welsh which got proceedings well and truly underway. It was a great try, a great line, and that's been complemented with a try from Scott McClyman and also Russell Anderson. Russell Anderson getting the final try in this game, as the ball does come to Shafajak at the back of that line out. He's knocked it forward, so Urston's got the ball now, and now into the hands of Gregor Young. Now Lewis Young, now Mason Cullen, as he grubber kicks it downfield. It's been gathered by Alan Ferry. He feeds Callum Anderson, who's got Craig Jackson in support on the halfway line. He's got a crossfield kick in him as well, as Lachlan Ferguson spotted a little bit of space, and is he going to win the foot race against Robbie Urston? The ball is in the goal area, but Robbie Urston does get down to the ball first. Ross Maben quickly there and saying it's going to be a goal line dropout, so we've still got time in this game. And Gary Monroe quick to get the ball. He finds himself underneath the posts, and you would imagine he's going to try and punt this as far as he can downfield and ask Selkirk to attack from deep, and he does exactly that. He finds a little bit of space, but Aaron McComb quickly fills it, and now Callum Anderson going for a drop kick, and that is the most adventurous effort there from the fullback. And it's been kicked downfield. If this crosses the touchline there, you would imagine that is going to be the final phase of play, and it is just that, as Ross Maben blasts his whistle, and the effort from Callum Anderson does not go over the post. Is a very ambitious drop kick there, but it does finish here. 36 points to 10. There was tries from Josh Welsh, Luke Petty, 2 tries from Alan Ferry, 1 from Scott McClyman, and also 1 from Russell Anderson. and there was 3 conversions from Craig Jackson to reply from a penalty from Finlay Scott, a conversion which was on the end of a Mason Cullen try. And on the balance of play, quickly Sam, before we join Robin Purdy down at the Green Yards, it was it probably in the second half it did go to form. There probably was 26 points between these two teams.
Yeah, you have to say Selkirk started strong, cemented their position, really took charge of the chances that Jedforest gave them, and in the end of the day deserved winners at Selkirk.
The teams exchanged pleasantries, but remember they're going to meet again next weekend, and also this victory means that Selkirk have found themselves in the Border League final. They top Pool A just ahead of Hawick. It means that they're going to finish Pool A on 7 points, Hawick on 6, Jedforest still with no points, and that's how they will remain. So it is Selkirk in the Border League final.
Thank you very much indeed to Dale and to Sam Mathews. After the break, of course, we will be going to Robin Purdy at Melrose.
When the weather's dreich and a storm's a brewing, you need a strong, windproof, quality umbrella delivered with good old-fashioned customer service and at an affordable price. Up here in Umbrella Heaven, we say you tackle the ball, we'll tackle the weather. UmbrellaHeaven.com for when the heavens open.
Based in Galashiels but covering the whole region and beyond, Borders Mortgage Hub is your one-stop shop for all things mortgage related in the Borders. Visit us at bordersmortgagehub.com or call us on 01896 807 008. That's 01896 807 008. Borders Mortgage Hub. Mortgages for the Borders in the Borders.
Hello, this is George Ingalls here, and I'm thrilled that my songs are now available on 2 albums, Anthology and Lockdown Blues.
Late in the evening, she's wondering what clothes to wear.
Both available on iTunes to download and stream.
I am the train, been gone since 69.
George Ingalls Anthology and Lockdown Blues. Check them out now on iTunes and other digital sites.
To commemorate the 7th anniversary of the opening of the Borders Railway, an 8 DVD box set is now available featuring the complete series Borders Railway from start to finish, plus the full hour-and-a-half documentary 5 Years On, which examines the possibility of an extension to Carlisle, plus extra features including a cab journey along the entire Borders Railway, all for the special price of just £14.99, including post and packing. You can get your copy direct from hotdisc.co.uk/shop. That's hotdisc.co.uk/shop. The 8 DVD box set, the complete Borders Railway, is available now.
Hi, Nicky Walker here, Curriculum Learning Manager for Sports and Outdoor Activities at Borders College. Have you ever considered turning your passion for sport into a rewarding career? If so, then why not get in touch at borderscollege.ac.uk/sport.
Borders College, regionally focused, globally engaged.
This is Borders Rugby Special on Borders Rugby Radio.
So a win for Selkirk tonight by 36 points to 10 over Jedforest. The two of them will meet again next week. Another important game kicked off, of course, at 8 o'clock tonight. Melrose against Stuart's Melville in National League 1. And on paper, with Stu Mel down at the bottom position and Melrose in the top 4, it should be one-way traffic, but is that the case? Let's find out now as we cross over to the Green Yards for the final part of the game with Robin Purdy.
So it's going to be a Melrose line-out. Melrose looking to add to the points difference. So I think points difference of around 75 points in Kelsey's favour. Obviously with Melrose a game in hand tonight being that game, so looking to close that points difference gap as well as the points gap at the top of the table.
Oh, come on!
Loose line out, right through the legs of Doug Crawford as he came round the corner of the scrum half. That was the result. It's in the hands of Lindsay. I beg your pardon, that's Jack Dobie actually, so here come Melrose again. Doug Crawford's got pace and shown it on that occasion. Out to Campbell Scott. There's an off the ball incident there, but the referee seems happy enough. So Stu Mel now with possession, well that's been fumbled and the referee's going to bring advantage to be played there. And Melrose were in, but the referee is going to bring them back. For, I think there was an original knock-on in there by Melrose actually, so he's going to give scrum down to Stu Mel, almost halfway between their own 22 and their 10 metre line. half an hour or so gone in this second half, it remains Melrose 38, Stumel 13. Stumel scrum. As the front rows come together. Fairly even contest in the scrum tonight, it has to be said.
Right, we're going to butt in there at the moment because the sound is obviously a few problems down at the Green Yard, so we'll try and get that sorted out, and we'll bring you back live here at Philiphaugh because Dale Clancy is talking to Alan Ferry, one of the victorious Selkirk players from tonight's match.
Yeah, firstly, Alan, it was a great performance and a big win for Selkirk, but you must be chuffed for getting 2 tries.
Aye, they don't come very often, but yeah, it's a bonus, but getting the win's the main thing.
The second half performance, it was quite tetchy in the first half, 15 points to 3. It was almost going to be one of those typical border derbies, but in the second half he's came out with a little bit more endeavour. Is it something Scott White said at half time, or was it something that the players group led?
Well, I had an injury, so I was in getting treatment, but no, I think it was more we just need to come out, do what we done the first half and don't let it drop. I think we've done that, maybe dropped a little bit, but we got the win, so.
And how are you enjoying time at Selkirk now? Because obviously you've had a season with the Southern Knights, and then obviously part of the draft, you're here at Philiphaugh. Are you enjoying it? You seem to be settling in well.
Love it.
2 tries, a couple of performances. You enjoying it?
I love it, yeah. My kind of level of rugby, carry the ball, yep, just tackle hard, do well, yep.
And then going into next week as well, it's obviously Jedforest down on their patch. It's going to be a completely different game. Is the squad fresh? How are you preparing? Are you thinking it's going to be go down there for the 5 points?
Look, just do the same, but we need to know that they're going to come back at us. They're going to be ready for it. They're at home. It's just we don't have to play well, just the same as today. We're just going to have to truck it up, play well. Pretty much it, yep.
And then where are we looking now? Obviously Selkirk last year, you're probably looking from a distance last season, but it was a difficult campaign. You must be very, very confident of getting in that playoff position.
Oh, yep, definitely. We're aiming for it. We're going for it, yep.
Well, we've obviously got a few fixtures coming up. You've got Jedforest away next weekend, then Musselburgh, and then probably one of the biggest ones away at Edinburgh Accies. Are you looking at next week's game, or do you have an eye on that Edinburgh Accies game, because that is going to be a huge one?
Week by week, I think we go. I think that's a kind of week by week. Just go for it.
That was the remit. Good. Well done on a great performance. Great to see you playing so well in a Selkirk shirt, and good luck for next week. But I'm going to have to remain impartial. But good luck.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Yeah, so that is Alan Ferry there talking to Dale Clancy. We've got the Jedforest reaction coming very shortly. Hopefully, as Robbie Yorston will be coming up there. Before he does, though, Dale, that was really not really like a border derby at all, was it, with a scoreline like that?
No, and I think before as well, I've seen the weather and I was a bit sceptical about what kind of spectacle we'd have, but I think I've been impressed with it. Alan Ferry, as he just walks away. I think that he kind of set the tempo with his runs and his aggression in the ball, and I feel a bit that Jedforest perhaps were second best in the contact, and it wasn't that typical border derby, because I think Selkirk brought that bit of flair, which they do get. I think the coup of having Craig Jackson at fly half and centre, and being afforded that flexibility of such an important playmaker really showed this evening. He kicked them in good positions. He was able to give them the ball on the front foot and get the ball in front of the runners, and I think that gave Jedforest a lot of trouble. And this Selkirk team, we did say it's a difficult league. It's a league where all teams look vulnerable, and if Selkirk can get themselves in the mix, then you wouldn't count them out from perhaps potentially putting their hand up and becoming Premiership champions.
Yeah, because they've now put another 5 points towards Edinburgh Accies. If Curry do a number on Edinburgh Accies tomorrow, then all of a sudden there's it's getting a little bit closer, and Edinburgh Accies, pressure put on them.
Yeah, definitely. I think Selkirk will be looking for that. They'll keep an eye on the fixtures coming up tomorrow, and obviously if Curry can get that victory, it'll do Selkirk's cause a lot of good, and certainly trying to cement that place. You would imagine that the home semi-final is out of reach, and I'm just hoping that Robbie Yorston doesn't get injured tripping over the tape in front of us as he joined us. But Robbie, obviously it's a disappointing result in the end, obviously on the wrong end of a 36 point to 10 scoreline, but there was points of the game that you definitely looked in it. It was just maybe a bit too much intensity in the second half from Selkirk.
They just put too much pressure on us, scrums especially. They killed us. Scrum penalties releases all the pressure off them and puts it onto us, so we need to work on that, work on penalties in general. We just gave away too many today, so
And obviously you've got them next week again. You'll have learnt a lot from this evening.
Yeah, exactly. We just need to turn up to training Tuesday. We've just said that in the team huddle. We need to really regroup, work hard at training this week, and really give it to them next week.
Outside looking in, it looks like there's a really good culture at Jed this season. It was a difficult campaign last season, and you've run in a bunch of fixtures where you've had to play Curry, Hawick, Mar and Selkirk twice. They're the teams that are sitting in the top 4, but you're competing. You've got the squad depth. Is there a shift in mentality? Is it the coaching that's coming?
Aye, definitely. The coaches have really lifted the boys. They've been great. Just there's a bit of new energy about the club, so they've been really building the spirit in the team, and it's been good.
I shouldn't really say anything too controversial in Selkirk, actually, but that's good to see. On a personal note as well, it's good to see you back out playing for Jed as well. And injury wise, you took a big collision against James Head in the second half.
I just got a knock on my shoulder. I thought I'd dislocated it again, but it's just a wee stinger, so I'll be alright. Be alright for next week, so it'll be fine.
So what's the target for Jed now? Obviously that's a disappointing defeat. It is getting, obviously Musselburgh are at the foot of the table, but there's not a lot of points. A lot of teams can beat each other on their day. Yeah. What is the goal for Jed this season?
Well, at the beginning of the season we said if we score more points than we concede in the league, we'll be in a reasonable place, maybe mid-table, and that was our goal at the start of the season. So it's still realistic. There's a lot of defeats this year that we feel we could have won. Especially like GHA away, Hawks at home. They're games that we believe we really should have beat the teams. So we just need to totally regroup, kind of not forget tonight, but work on it, and then come back harder next week and in the following weeks as well.
One final thing before I'll let you go, and obviously then start kind of looking at next week with your teammates. There's obviously an influence in that Selkirk team from the Super 6 that Jedforest perhaps haven't felt yet. Is there any players potentially coming and joining the squad, or is that the squad that we're seeing for the rest of the season?
I think that's just the squad we're seeing. We've not had anyone turn up to the club or anything from Super 6. We had a academy boy, Robbie Deans, playing last week.
Yeah.
He played well for us, but I think he had an academy game, or he's got one coming up this week or something, so he couldn't play. But yeah, this is the core squad of players that we're looking for. I've got a mate from New Zealand that's coming over in 2 weeks' time, so he'll bolster the squad a bit. So
brilliant. Well, it was good to see. It's certainly a stronger squad than you had last season, and it's good to see you playing with a lot of confidence. And good luck next week, and hopefully that shoulder holds up all right as well.
Fine,
so thank you very much, Robbie, for joining us.
No worries. Cheers.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Robbie Euston there, and we've also heard the Selkirk reaction from Alan Ferry as well. Well, let's try and go back to the Green Yards now, see if Robin Purdy is with us. Let's bring him in now. It's Melrose against Stuart Melville.
Yes, you're back to us at the Green Yards. It's Melrose 45, Stu Mel 13. Melrose adding another try. The ever lively Doug Crawford scampering behind the posts, which was converted by Struan Hutchison, which increases the daylight, increases the points tally for Melrose here this evening as they try to chase down Kelso at the top of the league. Stu Mel, however, have given a decent showing, a decent account of himself this evening. They've certainly been game, and they've given the ball plenty of air, but it's an attacking line out to Melrose, 10 metres or so from the Stu Mel line as they look to go over again. The maul is set, not moving particularly quickly as it stands, but they've got control at the back. Crawford to Ramage. Ramage has put it out the back door to nobody in particular, so Struan Hutchison's had to go back and go down on it, and that's yet another penalty conceded by Melrose, 15th of the evening. So definitely a concern for Bert Grigg and the coaching team when they look at the video and consider the stats. So penalty on their own 22 to Stu Mel. That's been hoofed to halfway line on the far side here at the Green Yards as Stu Mel continue to battle manfully, attacking the town end. It's going to be their line out as the forwards trudge towards it, and up it goes. It's taken cleanly at the tail. Little half break there as well as the space opened up. So here comes Stu Mel over the Melrose 10 metre line. The hooker, Danny Morrison, he's been prominent tonight. He's played well. The Burley character, as has their standoff Kyle Henderson, particularly with the boot. That's a powerful carry there by Ewan Morrison. their centre. So Stu Mel looking for more consolation. It's came off the face of one of their players and gone forward. Didn't see a hand in there, but the referee deemed it had gone forward, and the referee has also just brought proceedings to an end. So Melrose march on in their quest to catch Kelso at the top of Tennent's National League 1. Stu Mel will leave the Greenyards with nothing to show, but they can be pleased with their night's efforts without sounding patronising, of course, but they are rooted to the foot of the table. They will have other games that they will be targeting, I would have thought, for victories other than a trip to the Greenyards, but Melrose have done enough. They've been workmanlike. They've secured a bonus point victory, which is what they set out to do, and it finishes here at the Greenyards. It's Melrose 45, Stuart's Melville 13.
Thank you very much indeed. We got there in the end from Robin Purdy, who's been watching that match for us today. A bit of a surprise at the early starts with Stuart's Melville getting 10 points, but Melrose coming back with that 5 points. And, well, they're certainly putting pressure on Kelso at the top end of the table, and Gala and Ayr, who play tomorrow at Millbrae. So we're back at Philiphaugh now. We're just waiting for the floodlights to go out, which I'm sure they will, but we're still on the air for another 25 minutes. And Dale and Sam are here just reflecting back on the game that we've just seen, and Sam, will bring you in now. Very comfortable win really for Selkirk.
Yeah, I wrote down 2 points that I think there, and it was creativity from 9 to 15 on the Selkirk team proved very, very influential in that game today, and the Super 6 influx was also a big talking point. Me and Dale highlighted just after the final whistle there as well, with 4 players from that Super 6 setup coming back into the Selkirk side, really, really helping them get this point today, and they're going to take a lot of confidence from this to Riverside next week, where the two teams go at it again. Yeah, interesting about Russell Anderson not getting a pushover try, but actually running a good 20 metres, I think, to get his first try for Selkirk in his first game, and he looked impressive. They all looked impressive.
I think that's perhaps the little bit of a difference from Selkirk from this season to last season, that I was trying to weed out of Alan Ferry, but it's very difficult to. But I think the squad as a whole is really good. The impressiveness of bringing Bett and Anderson off the bench. Hamilton's a good 9. He gives you a different option, which means that you can rotate. Aaron McComb. You've got you can start Jackson at 10. You can start him at 12. You can move him as well. So I think in terms of the squad, they've got. I can't remember what game it was, but there was a game at the beginning of the season. You've got Nixon, who's been playing 6, and it was almost just a matter of let's get our best players out on the pitch. It was quite Eddie Jones-esque, to be fair, but it was get our best players out on the pitch and let's just make a fist of it. And it's been working well for Selkirk. Something that probably never worked well for them last year because they suffered with a lot of injuries. But they've had the rub of the green. They've kept players fresh, and you can see there, they've not had to do a lot of enforced changes. Anderson was one of the players that actually had to go off, but came back on the field strapped up, and it was a brilliant try. His and Josh Welsh's were, just great displays of, just picking your line, picking your time, good communication, and backing yourself as well.
The other game and National 1 today at the Greenyards. Melrose convincing win for them, and it really is great stuff at the top of the league, isn't it? National 1 with Ayr trying to upset the Borders with obviously matches against Gala tomorrow, and Sam also. Kelso go there next week, so a really important 7 days for Ayr and for the Border sides. Yeah, and obviously Ayr, they see themselves as the outsiders in the Nat 1, obviously, because the Borders do have such a grip on the top of the table. So Ayr really looking to get these games under their belt, but cause upsets. Kelso have to go up to Millbrae, which is not an easy fixture for them at all. That's going to put a real test to their credentials at the top of Nat 1. I really struggle to see how you can make a clear sort of favourite at the top of the league just now. Like, you have Gala that started off so strong in the league. All it took was a small speed bump in there, and that's really affected their confidence. As Dale alluded to in the halftime report, it all starts again tomorrow versus Ayr. So these games you can only do what's in front of you week on week, and you just have to take it as this competition. You take what it gives you, and then you try, almost as in just a horrible cliche, if you take everything you can, give nothing away, and just take it every phase of play at a time, not even one game at a time. You cannot take anything for granted in that one, and every team is showing that. And Dale, it's almost deja vu from last year, isn't it? Because we had obviously Kelso, Melrose, Gala and Heriots, and it was Heriots that got there. So we don't want to see that again, do we, from a Borders perspective?
No, I think you're a mind reader, because I was actually just thinking about that. Last year we were completely praising the quality in National 1, not always the quality of the rugby, but the quality of the entertainment, because it was interchangeable, and I think as Sam alluded to there, it was difficult to try and nail down a favourite. There was one point where it looked like it was Gallows to lose, and they certainly did that. You know, they felt bigger at home. They suffered away. They had a difficult game against Heriots as well. That, you know, eventually Heriots got over the line. But you look down the top 3 leagues. They're all really interesting. They're all really entertaining. The Premiership particularly, because I think all the teams look vulnerable. I think Hawick are the team that have probably looked like they've got the toughest underbelly in terms of they've got the deeper squad. They've got probably a little bit more cohesion because they've built that over the last couple of years. I think the other teams have been probably victims of their own success in terms of losing a lot of players to Super 6, because Hawick is, you know, it's like a band of brothers. I think they've obviously benefited from not losing too many. But even down into that one, like Glasgow Accies, Peebles, Falkirk, Newton Stewart, they're all fighting out at the top of that league as well. Usually we say it takes about 6-7 games to see who's going to be at top, but it's not. It's taken longer this season, which is, you know, I think you can complain about Super 6 and moan about it and what it's maybe done to perhaps the Premiership, which I agree with. But in terms of amateur rugby, it's given us more interesting games. I feel it's allowed us to have a more of a level playing field, but it's allowed a little bit more of a, you know, competition throughout the top leagues.
And the National 2 has been a crazy league, hasn't it, for who, you know, seeing like Preston Lodge, for instance, turning over Peebles in a huge way, and then losing by 40 odd points the next week by, I think, Kirkcaldy, and then Kirkcaldy goes and loses 60 odd points at home to Glasgow Accies. It's just crazy.
Thank God they're not playing for the Bill McLaren Shield in that too. It'd be getting passed about all the clubs. But yeah, as you say, obviously, like both of us are affiliated to Peebles in our past, and they're a bit of a kind of sleeping giant in the Borders, if you ask me, and they've got a lot of young players coming through, which hopefully filter through into the system. But to make that successful, you need to be playing higher up, because the players will look elsewhere, and they've maybe suffered, as Ian Chisholm alludes to, they've suffered against teams who like to play a little bit wider. They can swallow up big teams and play, and they can combative stuff, but when it does get a little bit wider, they tend to, you know, find it difficult, especially again like Boroughmuir towards the bottom of that league, and they found it really difficult at Megatland. So, you know, it's an interesting league, but then that's what you want to see. Like, I'm a neutral. I'm not as big a People's fan as a Selkirk fan as a whatever. You know, I like all the Borders clubs, and I think you want to see them all be successful, and that's what these leagues are doing now, which is great to see.
And the two teams at the bottom, Boroughmuir and Hamilton, both turned over Berwick.
Yeah, I know, but again, Berwick have settled into that league well. They've went through the last few years great, a great record at home, not being defeated until Peebles eventually went there. But they've settled in, and I think that's what we've spoken about before in terms of finding your level. Berwick have certainly found their level just now, and it's just a matter of how do they then develop and push on from there and try and look upwards as opposed to consolidating themselves and trying to stave off relegation. But definitely they're in a relatively fortunate position, because they're quite clear at the bottom who've got Hamilton. But I can't remember off the top of my head what the ups and downs are of all the leagues as we go through another Scottish Rugby restructure.
Absolutely, yes. It's all 10 teams next year, and it's 50 basically. 50 teams will be playing National Rugby as opposed to 46, but loads and loads of relegation. I mean, if you're in National 3 at the moment, I think 6 go down. In National 2, 5 go down, and National 1, obviously, you've got 3 going down, I think, from memory, but it's all over the place. But the thing is, you've got to get in your top half, otherwise you're going to go through that trapdoor, and it makes for interesting reading.
But then the other side of that, sorry, Sam, I'm completely hogging this, but the interesting side of that as well is a lot of these teams have went through seasons and seasons of rugby, and I'm saying this from experience of Peebles. You go through seasons of rugby, and sometimes you just find yourself in the middle of the league after 8 games, and you've got nothing to play for. So yes, it's going to be restructured and it's going to be rejigged, but at least it gives the fixtures right until the death. It's probably going to give the majority of the fixtures something to play for.
I was going to say the exact same thing, that as we just said there, the 5 in that 2 that go down, as you said, once you get to mid-table and you're aware you're in mid-table, a lot of teams sort of drop off and just go, well, this is where we are, this is where we sit. And then, as I alluded to there, with anybody can beat anybody before, there's no such thing as a dead rubber game to anybody anymore. They know they have to win, because this reshuffle is causing teams a lot of panic and a lot of worry that they could just inadvertently have been in the wrong place that would have been safe a year ago is no longer safe. So everybody has to try and win every game, and as you said, Stuart, you have teams like Preston Lodge turning over Peebles and then getting 30-40 points put on them the next week, and it can change at the drop of a hat.
It certainly can. Well, we're on the air till 10 o'clock, so another 20 minutes, so don't go anywhere. We've got plenty of rugby to talk about, and also also we've got a couple of interviews to bring you, including a chat with Glenn Young, who is on the bench for Scotland tomorrow against Argentina. And a few months ago we sat down with the man from Jedburgh, very relaxed. He's now playing his club rugby at Edinburgh, but has had spells at Newcastle Falcons and Harlequins as well. But we began by going back to his roots. It's an impressive sporting history. There's people like Ronald Young, Douglas Young, Ian Young, John Steed, Karen Steed, Gregor McKechnie, Rob Barr, all relatives who have done incredible things in sport, going way back into the past, and you're following in their footsteps. This is the new generation of Youngs. How inspirational were these people?
Yeah, they're massively inspirational. I think just being part of the family, it just like everyone just gets into sport, and then must just be in our genes that we just love doing the sports. There's a massive range of sports. Obviously, my dad with the boxing and stuff, my uncle with the swimming. So it's not just rugby. It seems to be just rugby now with all us. But no, it's good, and everyone's sporty and got a lot in common, I suppose.
And your dad, as a boxer, Commonwealth Games medalist, and represented his country on many occasions. Fantastic achievements and things that they can never take away from him.
Yeah, he's massively inspirational. My dad, he's like. That was the thing. When I was speaking to the twins about it, my dad and everything, like, you don't actually realise a lot of stuff that he's done, because he never talks about it, like, never brings it up around, and he's very humble and stuff. But just the way he is and the way he speaks, it's good, because obviously me being in professional rugby now, having someone like my dad who's been in like a professional environment, he knows the sacrifices and that it takes. It's good having someone so close to you that you can relate to, and he can give you advice, even though it's not the same sport. He gives you advice on how to like crack on and how to hold yourself to account and stuff.
Because a lot of parents who have had this success, they don't tend to be too pushy. What was he like encouraging you when you realised that you were getting into sport?
Yeah, he was just the same. It's just exactly, hit the nail on the head. He wasn't pushy or anything. Like a lot of people that I play with say, when they find out my dad was a boxer, they're saying, "Did your dad not want you to get in boxing?" Nah, he'd never push me to get into boxing. If I ever wanted to try it, he'd give me the chance to do it. But he knew, obviously, the Borders being a big rugby heartland, they just took me down to mini rugby, and then from then on, I've just grew. And then obviously, since I've been playing professionally, he's been very encouraging. My mum's the same. She's probably more into rugby than my dad, to be fair. So they're really helpful, very supportive, and they've done a lot for me, so it's good.
And what was it like sort of growing up with the twins in particular, Lewis and Gregor, around about your age? You're slightly younger, I think, aren't you?
Yeah, it was good. Obviously, when we started properly getting into rugby was when they were playing for Jed Thistle, and they were doing really well, and everyone's a bit of pressure to be living up to the name and stuff, but it was always good. It was always a bit disappointing, because obviously when I first played at Jed, I always wanted to play with them, but then just didn't really work out the way that they were with the Sevens, and then I went to Newcastle, and then Callum was a bit younger, so it never actually worked out that we played together. But it's good. It's got a lot in common with them, and have a good laugh, hanging about with the same boys and stuff, so it's good.
And plenty of get-togethers with the family as well. Out in the back garden, Callum's been telling me it got a bit rough and tough at times.
Yeah. Well, everyone's so competitive. My Uncle Gary's the most competitive, their dad. He's always trying to get one up on us all. So it's good fun. We always have a kick about it and stuff, and it's a good laugh.
Now, you mentioned that you've taken a slightly different path. Obviously, you're in the forwards now, although you did start off as a fullback, and you moved to the back row, number 8. Now you're playing second row. How did that progress come about?
Yeah, well, I just obviously I was a back when I was younger, because I wasn't as big as I am now, and I was quite quick. Obviously not as quick as they boys, but I was quite quick, and so I was playing at fullback, but I wasn't very good. Let's just put it that way. And then when I started playing for the Thistle, Alan Fraser, the coach, he just told me that they see me going to second row. Obviously with my height, I was a bit of a beanpole at the time. I was about 6'5", 6'6", and I was only 17 years old. So they put me in the second row, and it seemed to fit me a bit more. Coming up on the line-outs and stuff was a bit more of my forte, probably what I'm a bit better at. And ever since then, been in the row and loving it. And it seemed to be a better move for me anyway.
And a very mobile
Every player, especially in professional sports, has got their unique selling point, and I think mine is that I'm a second row, but I've got a bit of athletic, so I'm still pretty quick for a second row, like quick over the ground in the line out and that helps. That helps, just giving you that uniqueness that it'll hopefully give you game time.
And that sort of style of play is what's getting caps at the moment. We will just have to look at Richie Gray and Johnny Gray and these other guys in the Scotland squad at the moment who are very mobile, very good, incredible tacklers as well, and the sort of person you want in the side. And no doubt you fit that model as well. Yeah, well, I think obviously the game's changed a lot. It's changed a lot even since I started playing professionally a few years ago. You've got your mobile forward, especially I think in the second row, it's going more the way of you've got your one kind of mobile athletic lock who'll call the line out and stuff, and then your one lock who's the big traditional bruiser. So it's good. It's obviously they're expecting a lot more of your forwards from instead of just like hitting rucks and stuff. So but no, it's good. It fits the way I play, so I enjoy it. Yeah. And of course, you don't have to play your rugby in Scotland these days to get caps, as we've already seen. Obviously, I loved my time at Newcastle. I was there for 5 years or something, and it was great. It was a great city. I learned so much from the coaches and the players there, and I think the time came I wasn't really looking to leave, but then I just the opportunity came to go play for a team like Harlequins. I just fancied like a bit of a change, pushing myself outside my comfort zone and hopefully getting a bit more game time. So it really pushes you on to become a better player. People think, it'll be quite intimidating going into an environment like that, but it's never intimidating. They're always really welcoming, and they're always giving you like little bits of advice that'll just make you that little bit better. And it shows in the field, and you get a lot more confidence when you play with boys like that, and they show respect for you, and you show them respect, and then it just makes you a better player. But a big culture change as well. It's not cheap in London, is it? It is certainly not cheap. It was a bit of a shock to the system when I first moved. When I moved to Newcastle from Jed, that was a bit of a shock. Obviously, moving to the city, it was a bit more pricey, and then London's just a different gravy. It's very expensive, but it's good. It's a lot of there's so much to do, and it's good to get out. And I think a lot of the time you don't want to think about rugby all the time, so I like to do stuff like go and see a show or something with my missus, and just take your mind off it, and it really helps. So it's good. There's so much to do. There's a lot of very good second rows in Scotland at the minute. It's a very competitive. There's a lot of good second rows all over the place, so it's a really, really competitive position. Just got to let you're playing in the field, do the talking, and then I am still young, but they always say second rows start to hit their peak a bit older, obviously, than the forwards. So I've been putting on a bit of weight and stuff, and it's starting to help me in the contact area and stuff. And I think that's when it comes to the highest level, that's the thing that's going to make your difference is the physicality and stuff. So hopefully now that I'm maturing more as a player and physically, then hopefully that means I can kick on. That's Glenn Young, and all being well, he'll win his third cap for Scotland tomorrow against Argentina. Well, one of our team based in England, Mickey Giannotto, who covers Berwick Rugby Club for us, met up with the club's director of rugby, Guy Moore, a few days ago, and he had some very interesting things to say about concussion issues and bringing on youngsters. It's well worth a listen. And Mickey began by asking Guy to tell us about the setup at Scremerston, the home, of course, of Berwick.
At Berwick, here we run children's teams from P3 up through to under 18. Currently, the S1s through under 18s are playing in the East Conference section, which is basically the East Lothian schools and one or two of the Edinburgh schools. And the P groups play friendlies and tournaments in the Borders and up in East Lothian. So at the minute, we're trying to encourage growth of home players, and hanging on to players and player retention obviously is a big thing at the minute in Scottish rugby. So we feel as a club that encouraging youngsters to come through the system is the best way to get players for the future.
Do the schools around here actually play rugby, or is it soccer they play?
There's a lot of football played in Berwick itself, and our DO, Dougie Hall, spends a lot of time in the local schools, primary schools and senior schools in the area. He has quite an area to cover from Glendale, which is in Wooler, which is 16 miles south of Berwick, up into Berwick itself, and the primary schools from Ford right across to Lowick. He visits them quite often once or twice a week through the winter season.
So the recruitment is positive then, to say the least.
We attempt to be positive. He gets a lot of good feedback from the schools when he's there, and a lot of the youngsters come along and have a try and have a go at it. And we're a friendly club, and we try to make it a friendly, encouraging game. It's about playing the sport, not winning, losing. That's not important. It's just about having fun.
And what about the girls' setup too? Because they do play as well, don't they?
They do, yes. That's got stronger over the last couple of seasons. Again, that's probably a lot to do with Dougie and his team there. I think they're running currently teams in the 13 and 15 group, and the 17 group, they are slightly short of numbers, but the tournaments they attend, they tend to get players from other clubs and combine together so they can get a team together to play full matches.
Now, this is going to be a difficult question. Because of what's been talked about recently in rugby with concussion, is it easier to drag the boys in or the girls when you consider what their parents want them to do?
That's a good question. I think that when you speak to Dougie about it, the girls are very enthusiastic at the schools, and a lot of them love the non-contact part of the game. Something we've talked about in the club about running touch-only teams, and so it's to encourage a type of rugby to be played. Concussion-wise, especially with the boys, they seem to want to tackle, getting the tackle height right, protecting the children. Trying to prevent the problems before they happen, I think, is the biggest thing you can do. I am concerned that the media sort of coverage of concussion in the sport is very, very negative. And I feel as rugby as a sport, we've tried a lot to clean it up and get the tackle heights lower and prevent the problems before they occur.
I suppose in the way the media can just bang on about a subject for a day or two, then they can walk away from it, and whatever damage is done is done. Is that what you're saying, really?
Yeah, pretty much, yes. I agree with that statement. It's it's easy to create a problem. It's a lot harder to solve it once it's out there.
Now, for mums and dads and parents listening, they want their kids to get involved. What's the best way to contact you guys?
Well, the club has its own website and Facebook page, so you can contact through that. Or come along on a Wednesday night. The youth section, which is the under 13s up through under 16s, they train on a Wednesday night, 6:30 till 8 here at Scrammerton. And the juniors below that, the P section, P3 through P7, train on a Sunday morning from 10:30 here at Scrammerton as well. So feel free to come along and just enjoy some rugby.
They don't only just enjoy it, but there's a bit of discipline involved as well, isn't there, when they go back home?
Well, you'd hope so, yes. There's, you'd like to think that they come here and they learn to be respectful, they learn the sport, and win, lose, draw, whatever, you enjoy the game and you go home with a smile on your face.
Guy Moore, Director of Rugby of Berwick Rugby Club, with some very interesting things to say there. And bringing Dale Clancy back in again, what was your take on his comments about concussion? Because I get where he's coming from. The benefits of playing rugby far outweigh the risks, and better education, encouraging youngsters to play is very much the key to his argument, really, isn't it?
I don't know. It's one of those things that there's a lot of chat about it, and they covered some good points in terms of it can be, raised by the media and then they can walk away from it. But I think rugby as a whole does very well to try and modernise itself and be progressive in terms of the laws that it introduces, and the difference between level at rugby at top level, professional level and international level and grassroots level is slightly different. But they're all playing at the same laws. The impacts and the pace of it is slightly different now. We do get concussed. Ironically, I played my last game actually on this pitch, and I was at that point I was getting concussed kind of regularly, so it probably wasn't as well kind of known about or well spoken about then. It was kind of just brushed under the carpet to get people playing rugby. But if it's an issue, it's been raised, it's highlighted. But in terms of laws, I think that rugby does well to be progressive and try and protect players.
And Sam, I mean, there is this danger, isn't there, of kids and parents being put off by what they see on television and what they read in the papers as well. But it's the professional game more, really, which is attracting the biggest hits. But the main thing is to get people or youngsters out on the park, running about, playing touch rugby, wherever it is, get them out there.
Well, that's it. You said it yourself there. The vocal minorities are always the highlight of that. So when you see these bad collisions, you see these awful injuries that happen, there can be upwards of 80 other tackles in a game that do go not textbook, but they go as they should. There is no dangerous injury with them. And as you said there, I think Guy Moore alluded to beautifully, a lot of young kids do enjoy it when they get to try it. There's differences between young girls wanting to play and young boys wanting to play. They want to get the tackle. But you look at the success of the Women's World Cup and things like that. All these things are bringing rugby into a more positive space. And as Dale highlighted there, the injuries and the risks have been brought into the light. We're learning about them. There's obviously the if in doubt sit them out movement as well, which has really gained traction in the past 5 years or so, really gained momentum. So there's a risk involved in rugby, but as it was being summed up by all three of us and plus Guy Moore, the benefits of rugby outweigh the negatives by far, and it gives you so much more than just fitness and health. It really gives you all these extras, and look at us, we're sat here at 10 o'clock on a Friday night discussing rugby as three good friends, and you don't get that in many other places with many other activities.
Absolutely. Well, thanks to Sam and Dale for their efforts this evening and commentating on the big Border League match. Don't forget a quick look at tomorrow's two key matches involving Borders teams. Hawick at home to Musselburgh and Gala are away at Ayr. But in the Premiership / Border League Pool A tonight, it was a win for Selkirk, a result that sees Selkirk progress to the Border League final. In National 1, victory for Melrose after a stuttering start. They won against Stuart's Melville. Well, next Saturday we're back to normal with a feast of rugby, and our commentary match from National 1 is Melrose against Gala from the Green Yards. Hope you can join us for that, but for now, from me and the team, a very good night.